Good evening, folks. Welcome to the December 19th, 2023 meeting of the Northfield Select Board. We will call this meeting to order. How's everybody doing? I feel like it's been a while.
I know.
Hello.
Hello to everyone.
Hello. Hey. So, yes, that's great. So we're good. We first up have on the so we have a 6:30 conservation. We're going to wait until 6:30. Of course, that's our first and only schedule appointment that we have this evening. Citizens' concerns tonight. Do we have any citizens' concerns tonight? Yes, please come up.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Patterfield, as you all know.
I think if you sit, the
Have a seat,
microphone will work
Pat.
better.
The
yeah.
microphones are at the
Please sit
table.
down.
We need you on microphone, Patter.
Is this the mic?
Yes.
Okay. I am Patterfield. I live on Highland Avenue, and I'm here with a concern about the closing of the bridge on School Street. I want to remind everybody that the Open Space Committee a year ago in 2022 enlisted a lot of volunteers to work on the Millbrook Trail System, which runs all around through the snow property and the conservation property below the golf course, and also comes out on one side of that bridge and then goes back in on the other side. There were several volunteers from town, probably about 20 in all, some of whom built quite extensive bridges over swampy areas and streams. And that trail is fairly heavily used by local people who live in the neighborhood, as well as by, for example, the Northfield Bird Club. We have a walk there in the spring every single week. The only way to get from one side of the trail to the other is to cross that bridge on School Street. There is no bridge over the stream there, and it would be a very extensive process to build one, because the stream floods, as if you walk down there today, you'll see. So that's one point. I think also that road, if a lot of people in the neighborhood walk a loop, which includes walking, for example, around by the library, up Dickinson Street, and then over and up School Street, and then down Burnham Road. It makes a really nice loop for a lot of people who live in that area on Main Street or in any of the neighborhoods in East Northfield. And people walk their dogs, people walk that way, and now they can't. So something I think needs to be done for the walkers, even if that bridge needs to be closed for vehicular traffic for a while until it gets fixed. Walkers do not weigh very much. It would be possible, I look at the barricades, and I don't know what kinds of things are possible, but if you, for instance, ever have gone walking in the British Isles, you will have encountered stiles, which are like little steps that go up over the fences. There are all kinds of trails throughout the British Isles which go through lots of people's properties, and people have sheep and cows and whatever, but you can walk up a stile over the fence and down the other side. It would be really easy to put a couple steps on each side of those barricades. It would not in any way it would completely still keep any vehicular traffic off the bridge, but it would allow a 200-pound person to walk safely across the bridge without having it collapse. And it would allow us to continue to use the Millbrook Trail System, which is currently basically halfway blocked. It's no longer a loop. So that's my point, pretty much. I don't know what's possible, but I'd like for people to think about that and think about the impact that closing that road has had on the neighborhood and on the trails and on all the work that the Open Space Committee did last year.
Okay. We've heard your concerns, and we thank you very much for your comments regarding that matter.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Can we dim this light a little bit? It's bright. Thank you. Are there any other citizens' concerns at this time? If not, we will move onwards in our meeting.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays, and thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you, Tyler. Same
Happy
to you as
holidays.
well. And tell Ted I said hello.
Yes.
Chair, I know that there's an upcoming discussion. Would it be appropriate to mention that now?
What upcoming discussion?
On the 9th, you had
We've asked Tom to come in on the 9th to talk about this, to put it on the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we talk about it under proposed agenda items then?
Yep.
We'll
Just
do
so
a look
people who
ahead.
are
Okay.
listening.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was, I wanted to ask if it were okay to tie it to the citizen concern because it pertains to the same thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
I put an asterisk.
Okay. Onwards. Review and approval of the warrants. If I could hear a motion for the December 13th, 2023 payroll warrant of $100,155.89.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Typical payroll warrant, but we've seen
It was
We've seen it
higher, but
a little higher than
there was
usual.
a few extra, like police detail,
Which we cover, yeah.
right?
And then we get reimbursed.
Snow removal, wages, fire department. I found out only pays their employee wages quarterly,
Quarterly, so you saw a quarterly fire department payroll.
Okay.
and one of the stipends or two of the stipends went through for EMS, so that was the extra.
Okay. I figured it was something like that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And somebody want to speak to the other one?
I move that we approve the December 13th, 2023 vendor warrant of $308,703.80, including, I believe, the Franklin Tech assessment.
Yes,
Franklin-
just
yeah,
the one quarter.
Technical school assessment.
So 100 and something, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay.
So a
Okay.
third of that is.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. We'll factor that as discussion.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Review and approval of the December 5th, 2023 minutes.
Those are fine. Oh, yeah. I move that we approve the minutes from December 5th, 2023.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah. All right. Interim select board meetings. I don't think there was anything like that.
Nope.
Meetings and events attended by select board members. Anybody have any meetings or events?
I do, but I gotta look it up.
Sarah?
I do. So I met with the head of the highway department. I met with the police chief regarding a proposed addition to the special town meeting warrant. I attended open space committee. There was discussion of land use in the best interest of the town and flyers for new members. I met with the PVRS Environmental Education Department regarding their tick protocol, as we had discussed last time. I met with the tax assessor to better understand our tax discussion from the last select board meeting. The school board, I attended the school board meeting and was voted the municipal representative for collective bargaining for the school board, the PVRS school board. And there's some really interesting information coming up about the building. Oh shoot, I forgot the binder. I'll run and get the binder in a second. And then about limiting cell use during school hours. As a I'm going to school now for neuroscience, and so that was particularly interesting and kind of wheelhouse for me and interesting to hear what the school was planning to do about that. The Northfield BSA Scouting Troop 9 had kind of died off and is now coming back to life, and we have more scouts, and so I was in contact with the troop leader about that, and I met with a staffing professional regarding the org chart that we were presented, the draft, several citizens about their individual concerns, and then the Northfield Bird Club to plan a Lyme lecture that I discussed last time too. I just met with them again. So
Wow.
Good.
So you're in the Boy Scouts now too?
I already was.
Oh,
I was a Boy Scout leader before.
oh.
Me too. I was a packmaster.
Nice. But I'm not looking to lead. I think that I really believe in scouting, and my next oldest son before this one is a Eagle Scout, and so has retained interest. He's really into bats, so he built bat boxes for his Eagle Scout project.
Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent. Good for him.
Heath.
I did not have anything since our last select board meeting.
Look at you.
I had a meeting with the police chief to discuss policy and procedure and just other miscellaneous things.
Ookie.
Criminal justice junkies, I guess we'll call it that.
You're a wonk.
B?
In a good way. I had a finance committee meeting with the FERCog finance committee, and I worked on 3 classifications, 1 for highway and 2 for sewer. So those were all set and ready to go. And we had a historical commission meeting as well. And I too talked to the police chief.
And you were looking at there was a folder of reviews that you were looking at?
Oh, I did that too. Thank you.
She
May
did,
I-
and yeah, Heath's.
I had a little meeting with
Got 'em
myself.
Okay. When, not in a hurry,
I'm
but
done with them tonight.
yeah, I would like to.
Okay. TA's update.
Okay, I'll make it quick because I knew we had a lot to do. I think you got a copy of the district mosquito report. I
Yes,
just bring it
thank
to
you.
mention because it's really our first full year members of that. So I just wanted to make sure that you all had a copy of that for the first time. I don't know how, I kind of looked through it. It's a little wonky, but since it wasn't a big topic the year before, I wanted to make
Yes.
sure that everybody realized that we had joined that district and that we actually have been participating. The Board of Health has really taken leadership on that, but I wanted you guys to see it for the first year. Second, the double polls. So this is another kind of wonky thing, but here you all go. Here is the double poll report for every double poll in the town of Northfield.
Nice.
And it's really, if you'd be shocked at actually how few it is compared to some towns. It's not that heavy, but having said that, we still live with them. So I spoke to Ellen Cummings, who's the Verizon Regional Director for State Government Affairs. I've spoken with her about things before, and she kind of explained the process here. And I'll kind of explain this little report to you. The first few things don't really mean too much. Northfield ticket number, street number, obviously. Poll numbers don't really, that's their system. NTG member. NTG means next to go. So what that means is who's the next in what's happening. WME is Eversource because that's the old Western Mass Electric.
Yep.
CMTC, that's Comcast. And Verizon is the VZW, and then it has a little couple codes after that.
Yeah.
So that's the 3 codes because that's really
What
all
is
we
the
have.
W? I'm sorry.
WME is Western Mass Electric, which is now Verizon.
No,
Also Verizon.
Eversource.
I'm sorry, Eversource.
Okay.
No,
I'm sorry,
no.
you're right, I'm sorry. Eversource. Verizon is the V, and Western Mass Electric became Eversource. So it's still in the
Correct.
system as WME, but it's Eversource.
There are at least 8 polls, double polls missing off of this list. Glenwood, all down Glenwood is double polls.
She said this is the system. It's a system that all of them belong to. It's called the I've got to look at the number she gave me here. NJUNES, it's a database they all share. So
Okay,
people enter it. They enter it as if, so they enter polls and then they all put their steps in as they go through.
Maybe that's why they've been sitting there, because if they're not on the list, people wouldn't know to.
Well, whoever's responsible for setting them would put them on the list, and then they move through the transfer. The big thing is the transfer. So what we're seeing here is there's a process. Eversource is on the top. Electric's always on the top. And then on the bottom will always be Verizon, the telephone And then in between will be any other pole riders. In our case, it's Comcast, but there can sometimes be others. So when you look at this list, you'll see the next to go member is who they're waiting for. And then Verizon ultimately pulls the poll. She said there will be sometimes polls that aren't pulled even though one's done. For example, you can see on Main Street, there's one sitting in Verizon,
they wanna
but
wait for
there's like 8 more from Comcast. She said, we won't send out, do a detail, and do that. We'll wait for the others to complete and do it all at once. So sometimes you'll see one sitting with Verizon, even though there's 3 more, 4 more, 5 more on the street waiting for the next step.
So they do them in groups.
They will if there's a group coming.
Gotcha.
They see a group coming, because it's a big deal to send up a thing and to do a detail and to impose on the
Stop
road.
traffic,
So every
yeah.
now and then you will see one sitting with Verizon, and they haven't gotten to it yet. Sometimes just because they haven't gotten to it yet, sometimes because they're waiting for the rest of a group to go. But there's not too many sitting with Verizon. The
So
biggest
who would
is-
we notify about the ones that aren't listed? Because I went down and counted them, so I'm absolutely sure they exist.
What we need is the number that's on the poll.
Okay.
So if we because there's a little, you'll see a number, and it'll look like these. Sometimes
It's
it's
like a little-
90-290. It's
Yeah.
usually in metal.
It's
they've
like a
actually
metal
stamped
tag,
it on.
yeah.
So yeah, if there's numbers on those, then I can certainly reach back out to her and ask her why
Okay.
those aren't there.
Great.
So anyway, but this is the system, and we can see why the ones on Highland are listed.
Okay.
And for the most part, it's Comcast.
Yep.
They're waiting on
good.
Comcast.
Thank you.
That's right. People need internet.
And then the last thing that you just wanted me to throw in there, tablets. So Select Board, you have your new tablets. I had an account that had a little bit of money left. I was working with our IT vendor. They came back with some pricing, and since they're our IT vendor, and they support us, they don't charge us to come in and set that up. So you all have one, and we're just starting the process. So we've got directions. They were out here today. Like I said, your keyboards and case come tomorrow. So once I have those, please come and get them to protect your thing. And
And
all
follow
that
the directions.
try to follow the directions. If it doesn't work,
pretty easy.
please, Sandra and I can help you a little bit, but really call, and the person is Dan.
Yeah.
Call Northeast IT and say, can I speak to Dan about the Northfield tablets? And there's a sheet in there you can write his name on that's actually printed out directions from him. So he did go through them with us, and they did work. We set one up under my email, and then we erased it. So it should work, but again, if it doesn't, let's get it working. And it has a calendar, a shared calendar, which you'll see that I've already put some things in. It has something SharePoint, so if you click on SharePoint, folders should come up with years in them.
Okay.
And those will then be the year. We've put past year's material in as well.
Oh,
Sandra
good.
spent some time doing that.
Thank you.
And then you should be able to get your meeting materials by date, there. And there's an app called Notes. So if you want to take some notes, you can do that too. Just remember when you go into the calendar that it always comes up like that day. So go in and hit month if you want to see. a big-
And whatever we put on the calendar,
Everyone will see what's on the calendar. And I'm trying to put things of shared interest, like the schools' hearing dates for their budget and such are in there. Finance committee dates are in there right now. Things like six-town regionalization. If something were to come across the desk again, that will go in there.
Yeah.
So we'll try to put those kinds of shared meetings.
Cool.
And that way it doesn't mix. And you can add it to your own personal calendar, that's up to you, but it seemed like a lot to be putting in your personal calendar. So this way you get it separate and you can put those things in,
Thank you.
your own meetings and stuff.
Now
Okay.
the 2023 Bloodsucker District Report.
Is that what we call it?
What?
Well, that's what a mosquito is, right?
Oh, we just did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
I figured, but isn't there anything more on that, or?
Well, I just said
Did
that
it
you
go to
have
the
it for the
Board of
first
Health?
time. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
So you have a copy of it since it's our first year.
It's actually very exciting. I was really excited to get
So-
it because it took us a couple of years to actually get into the district to start getting that data. So it's super important.
So, yeah. It's our first full year
We actually have data now
and we have data. So
to start.
All right. Well, so we have a few more minutes. Is that all?
short and
good?
sweet today.
Nice. That's great. Outstanding. First up on our business, we'll move along here since we have 5 minutes. I have to be punctual because that's how B was when she was the chair.
Thank
really
you.
punctual. So,
Thank you.
We might want to skip the very first one because I think the chief might
Chief's
be
coming
coming
in?
in at 7.
Aha.
Is that what we thought?
Yes.
So you could
Okay.
speak to, I thought he might speak to that for you
Okay.
a little bit more.
Very good. Do we think we can get enough for the next one?
I
then?
think so.
Well, let's get talking on it. Grant Development Director resignation and position posting. So,
Yeah, the state poached our grant development director. She's going to work for the new director of regional
She's
affairs.
going to work for Ann
Rural
And
Goby.
she's
affairs.
going to be rural affairs, and she's going to be in charge of the rural development grants. So she may see us again. I don't know if we'll see her, but
how
There's-
long was she employed here for?
a year.
Year.
Was it a year?
was a
Okay,
full
so
year.
she
Oh,
made it
yeah.
a year.
She
We
was a
took
full
one
year.
for the Commonwealth team.
Yeah, she's not the first employee we've lost to the Commonwealth. They got to stop doing that.
Well, this
We
happens.
lost our treasurer collector. to the
But now we have
Commonwealth.
an in Ann Goby's office, so.
Well, she certainly wrote on her updates that she stole it for us, so she recognizes that.
Do we need to a motion to accept the resignation, or do we?
yeah.
Need, yeah.
I probably should.
Okay.
I move that we accept the resignation from the Grant Development Director, Mallory Sullivan, with regret and with
And-
gratitude.
Yes, and the best of luck moving forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have a motion on the floor for that.
Second.
Second from Heath. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With the
Aye.
unanimous passing, Mallory, thank you very much for what you brought to this town, the amount of money that you brought to this town, and how amazing you were at doing your grant work. You were an investment that well paid off, and any other municipality or entity in the state that has you will likely say the same thing. So, thank you.
Yes.
So I did ask her, the first thing I asked her was to look at her job description, since she was the first person in the role, to suggest any changes. Is this actually what you do? Is this actually represent what you do? Are there anything now that you've been in it? She only made a couple changes. You have it here. It's funny, the governance thing is in the section of it, and it didn't come out highlighted, but there's only 3 things, so I can probably do it quick. Number 5, I want to add, she suggested we add about including afternoon and evening meetings as necessary
Yeah. I
to
saw that.
to that, just so that people are aware. She said it wasn't a big deal, they should expect that, but then under 11, which you have to go past the governance somehow.
Yeah, I saw that.
Somehow it got stuck in the middle of the pages there. You get a couple
Past the
pages.
stapled part.
You will get to
yeah.
the 3rd page of the job description.
It's like an insert.
Yeah. Under number 10, we added number 11, which says informs the public of grants, economic development projects through public outreach, including but not limited to writing press releases, communicating with local news sources. So that's a complete add to
Yep.
the job description. She suggested that.
What about, she was making a grant dashboard so that
Yep.
we could, is that on here?
I have it. I think it's,
But
she
is
considers
that
it.
maintaining, it's not good if it's not maintained, can that be added as one of the responsibilities?
You could. I'll see where it fits or add it in its own.
Let's see.
Under develops organized facility planning process to identify grant ideas, maybe add something like maintain dashboard. Maintain
Right.
a dashboard.
Just because I think that's,
Yep.
it's important to maintain that. And then she fell under her salary for the first, I think, 3 years fell under ARPA.
Yep.
Does this new hire, is that covered also by ARPA?
That's what I'm proposing, is to hire for till 2026 under ARPA. Yes,
Okay.
that
I
would be
see.
my purpose. And then the last thing is, she said we should expand under education and experience, put in more on, and so we added we had planning, economic development. She suggested add public administration or related liberal arts field to expand it, to make it more attractive, maybe to some candidates who say, oh, I don't have a planning degree, I'm not
Oh,
going to
good.
apply. And we don't really want to go there.
Okay.
We think people could have some very good things. So those are the changes that I would propose, and I will add the dashboard in as one of the objects to keep, one of the things to keep up.
And the
Thank you.
dashboard goes on?
I thought number 2.
2. Okay.
Yeah, where
Got
it says, talks about grant funding
Yep.
and maintaining the grant dashboard.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you guys want to vote those changes, I'd love to post this job tomorrow.
I move that we approve the changes to the Grant Development Director position. Is that all I need?
That's good enough.
Okay, second.
Yeah.
Just seemed kind of short, sorry. I
No, it's
paused.
fine. It doesn't have to be anything else. On discussion? No?
My only discussion question is, do we need to say something about that funding, the plan to use ARPA? Does that need to be?
I wouldn't put that
Put
in the
somewhere.
job description, only because if this job is to go on after
Oh, you're
that,
right. Yeah,
we
yeah.
might want to hire it into town
Okay.
funding at that point.
That can go in the materials and the discussion with the candidate,
Yeah,
for sure.
we'd certainly
Yeah.
tell them, she knew,
Yeah,
that she had a 3-year, that it was funded for 3 years, but that we would push very heavily with the results, and since we had almost $1 million last year alone for
11
her,
months,
the
yeah.
leverage on that is phenomenal, so I don't see how
Does the time that she is not in the role count against the further 2 years, or can we start somebody fresh with 2 years?
I can start somebody through, and I have to spend all of the funding, so it will have to be expended by 2026. So I will have probably just under 2 years, because if we hire in like February, we'll
is
probably
that
have to
fiscal
shift somebody.
26 or is that calendar 26?
I think it's calendar, so I think we should just about be able to squeeze it in.
Okay,
And if we can't, we'll do it at the town meeting that will fund fiscal 26. There might be several months on the end that might have to be funded, but it would be a portion of the year. So,
But that
I'm
would be
laying
something
out.
that a candidate should know, because if
Yes,
it's not funded.
absolutely.
Okay.
yeah, but you don't do it in the job description.
Yeah.
You do it, yeah.
No,
okay.
no, no, it'll all be spelled out.
Yep, cool. Yeah, let's get on it.
So I'm going to post that tomorrow and get that process started, because I'm already in a panic. So,
Outstanding.
Well,
Okay.
we've got deadlines,
got big deadlines coming.
especially the Shell Bridge ones. so-
Yes.
Yeah, if we get that, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Okay, motion is on the,
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
motion's still on
okay.
the floor. That answers the
Yeah, that
discussion
answers
portion.
me.
Then we'll take a vote for the position posting. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. That will get that rolling and underway.
Enthusiastic, aye.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Okay, so that will bring us to our 6:30 p.m. Conservation Commission update with Bill Llewellyn. I'm
And
assuming.
other members of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, please come up to the table where the microphones are at.
Is this posted jointly?
Was this a posted joint meeting on your end?
No, we're not talking.
Okay,
We're
So
not
you-
talking.
okay.
Bill's talking.
okay.
I'm just
Okay.
giving you
Oh,
You're throwing things around.
I know.
well, hello.
So it is not your intention to speak as a board tonight?
Well, we're supporting the chair who's speaking, and if you want, but we're not discussing anything that might
Correct.
be related
Yeah.
to anything within our realm of authority.
Good.
Okay.
I'm going to pass those around.
law. I know, I got one fan for the law. There should be 2 sections to each one.
Okay.
And then, hi Bill. So you can't still, can you hear us?
He's not muted now.
See us, hear us.
Can
Hi,
you hear
Bill.
us, Bill? Oh, wait a minute. No, I have to unmute us. There we go. Now I hear you.
Hi, Bill.
Hello.
Myself and Mike are also here. And Sarah. Sarah's supposed to be here, so we know that, yeah. We're surprised.
All right, well, since you are here and I haven't really ever met you before, let's just have each person identify themselves just so that we are on the same page for that.
Did you want to go with Bill first?
It doesn't matter. Hi, Bill.
Yeah, do Bill, because he's remote.
So,
Everybody knows Bill.
yeah, everybody. So.
Do you want to introduce yourself formally, Bill?
Pardon? I didn't get it.
Do you want to introduce yourself formally?
Actually, the microphone's over here.
I'm Bill Llewellyn, Chair of the Conservation Commission.
Sorry, Leksha, I'm also part of the Conservation Commission.
Mike Barry on the Conservation Commission. Don't know how long I've been, for a while.
Yeah. How long
Sarah
have-
Kern's also on the Conservation Commission.
Just a quick question. Do you know how long Bill and you have been? I know you guys
A bit
have,
longer than me, but
for sure.
I've had 35 years,
Oh, gee. Okay. Just
going on 36.
second.
That's a heck of a volunteer record.
Yeah.
I can't see anybody there. I don't know.
Oh.
You know what? Let me do this. Whoa, what's going on here?
We're gonna try it.
There you go.
Yay!
There you go. Hi.
Sarah.
Do you want me to get started?
Please do.
Over the period of time, we get a feeling that the select board administrator doesn't really know what all the boards in town actually do. You know, kind of what we're supposed to be doing, but, you know, it's, when we reach out for help, it's not easy to do. Sometimes we can get help easily. Majority of the time, no. So I would think there should be a lot of improvement there, both select board and administrator. There's situations.
Address that, Bill.
The situations we deal with all kinds, but this latest one of the ones we're dealing with for quite a few months, been rather difficult. We're working through all the different procedures that we normally have to go through with guidance from the state. But all of a sudden one day I got a phone call from Alex, kind of blasting me out, caught me off guard. Probably didn't respond very much because I was kind of probably in shock, but basically ripped because he had a phone call from this party, and when you get one of those, the board really needs to know how to act with these different situations. When you get a phone call, some of the people can sound like they're angels and the town boards are devils. And I feel Alex took that hook, line, and sinker. The way he laced us out, didn't think we were doing anything, and called out one of my members on the board of not being acting professionally as a Conservation Commission member. That really bothered me. If you really knew the situation, which you should have to begin with, try to find out more. That would have been the first step when you get these phone calls. Because usually there's more to the story than what you hear from one person. So moving on, we really would like the select board to put in the effort to learn more actually what all the committees do, especially the Concom. When we have trouble, over my 35 years, we've had a lot of different situations. We have a procedure we have to follow, go through different stages. We were doing that on this. It was really hard getting kind of towards the end, but these things do not go to the select board. It would go, our next step, which we're very close on doing, is turning it over to the state. When that happens, it's a whole different ballgame, and we never had to do that, but probably should just leave it as that, because we have procedures we have to follow. We take guidance from the state DEP. The only time the select board would have to step in is if there are no members of a commission. That almost happened a few years ago. And that's when I was before all of that, asking for help. Got a little bit, but nothing. We're down to 3, trying to hold everything together. And files and what have you got out of hand. I knew that, but we had to keep things going. So I got lambasted on the files and all of that. But anyways, we should move on. There should be a lot of improvement for the board and administrator. Be easier to work with you. Ask a question. It should be easier to try to come up with a solution, but sometimes it is, but most of the time it isn't.
Okay, so you presented to us 2 documents. Protection of Wetlands Executive Order 11,990 and the other one on Chapter 131, Section 40. So do you want to speak to those documents since you handed them to us?
I can, if you'd like, Bill.
So,
That's fine.
okay.
So what the Conservation Commission does is it enforces as a regulatory commission, it enforces the Massachusetts aspect of the Wetlands Act, which is a federal executive order. So that's why I gave both of them to you, so you could see where it begins, which is Carter in 77, and then how Massachusetts handles that executive order, and it is enforced throughout the community, and the kinds of things that we have to do and what we have to look at as a commission, which is why each of us has our kind of our specialty when it comes to reading land or trees or whatever we do, and how we have to approach these kinds of situations. The exact order in which we do these things is laid out quite clearly through Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. They do have a wing out in Springfield, which is our main contact. Is that good?
Yeah, I actually was already familiar because I've been through your website and I've actually been to meetings. So I'm a little, I think we're overdue on having an update from the Conservation
I
Commission.
can't even remember when the last time
Right.
we had an update from them.
So I just want to take a step back in that we're always happy to help. I actually go to quite a few different committee meetings just to stay in touch. I haven't had to do that lately with ConsCom, but I know as Historical Commission, it's a very similar, probably easier on the Historical Commission side, to be honest with you. But we're a similar organization in that we have to work with the state. So I'm just curious, based on the opening comment, what the expectation or the need is for assistance beyond what seems to be an individual case that I'm quite sure that we should not be speaking about.
Right.
So,
We do have a meeting tomorrow, which
Yeah.
of course is always open, but what kind of an update would you like? I'd be more than happy to supply you with anything you'd like.
no, I mean, we typically have committees come before the select board and just say, here's what's going on, here's the latest, like the energy committee, here's the latest things that we're working on, and it's more proactive as opposed to reactive. This seems reactive,
Well, yeah, and
which
just,
is fine.
and just sorry, but just to
Okay.
go on that, like I'm biting my tongue right now not to respond to what Bill had to say on a conversation on a matter that I'm not going to address in the meeting because it doesn't have to do with a typical update that we have when it comes to bringing in different organizations in the town. So that's why I said, like, you have these documents here, it's nice to know what's going on, what you've been up to for the past year, and something like that, in that type of form. So.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I want to start doing with committees, and the reason why I want them to come before,
Right.
is, and I mean this generically, I don't mean specifically the ConsCom, is there's certain things on each of the web pages that, for example, I went onto the ConsCom web page because I knew this was on the agenda, and there's broken links on there. There's a 1991 state document. I would just ask that each committee keep that web page, their particular web page, up to date, because it's hard to know actually what's going on from looking at some of the web pages, and I would include ConsCom in that.
And Bill is the chair.
That's correct.
How long has he been the chair for?
35 years.
No,
So-
36?
Come and gone. I don't know. Bill?
Over 36?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly, but
So
wait,
he uses an AOL address. Is it possible that since he is the chair that he has some type of?
The conscom has an email.
We have an email.
So who is the correspondence coordinator?
I am.
You are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that an official title that you
I
guys are
don't.
using?
That's what I put up because Andrea had asked me to not sound like I was speaking from
Yeah,
like a
Really shouldn't
like a-
sign that any emails as the Conservation Commission, because then people go, oh, the commission has discussed this. And
So yeah,
didn't
she had advised that, and I'd taken that as a
I
good
don't
idea.
think you have to use any title unless you've been given that title by the committee, would be my,
I'll do whatever you advise. Should I take that off, or how do you want it to be?
I'm just saying generally you need to be authorized by a committee, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm on the Historical Commission, I just ask them for authorization to work with the CPC during their process coming up. So I always kind of take that extra step. So if you're going to be the correspondence coordinator, I would just have that authorized by your committee.
I think we did discuss you having that role, if whether or not it had an official title like that or not. But
Or clerk, or whatever it is, but yeah.
It may not have had those words associated
Yeah.
with it.
Anyway, we don't
We
want to,
agreed that, yeah.
yeah, we don't want to get
you
into
would take on that role.
deliberation, but.
Right.
Yeah,
And one thing that I'd like to add is people, when they ask me about Conservation Commission items, will often not understand how closely our work is tied to wetlands specifically. They think that it's more about, that it would include animals and different species and stuff like that, and really mostly it's about enforcing the wetlands. So that's just something for people to know as they learn about
so
different commissions.
so the mission statement is really well done on the webpage, as is also, there's a link there called the role of wetlands, which basically is a great description of what you guys do and why people should appreciate the wetlands. But I would take a look at all the other links that you have and just make sure that they're up to date, because some of them are broken and some of them are old. But the role of the wetlands, you might actually want to promulgate, because it's really, I don't know who wrote it or how long it's been up there, but it's really a great piece. And it kind of builds on what's said in the mission statement, which is what you get when you first go to the webpage. You have to click through to actually look at the role of wetlands.
Now,
But that's just a thought.
absolutely no.
Okay.
Can I just ask who I would? Because I know Sandra is the one I've been able to go through before on
Yep.
posting things. So is that someone else I can give
Yes,
links
and
to?
actually, you could also talk to Sandra. There are people who do their webpage. So some people actually post to their own webpage. So
that
that's
would be
something.
amazing.
Yes, and there are some that like to upkeep their own webpage, and I think Sandra's more than happy to hand that responsibility to a committee rather than to
Don't
try
tell
and
me
upkeep
that.
all
I'll
the
be right on that.
because some are more static than others, but people who want to, like the Council on Aging is constantly adding things, and so it's obviously more convenient for them to just be able to do it themselves. So
That'd be fantastic.
there is a way, I think, that some people can get in there and do their own, and then you can kind of design your own thing going on. I mean, we have this standard format to say, here's our mission, here's our members, and then, but from there.
Well,
Can I just go back to Bill had mentioned help.
yeah.
So I think, part of what that comes to, quite some time ago, we used to have somebody who was a part-time paid position just to take minutes at our meetings and do some administrative things. We had trouble, we went one person after another and always had trouble keeping somebody in that role. So certainly that role was helpful, and we don't have that anymore. But there was also discussion, and the hope was that there are some towns that actually have a full-time position to actually help a conservation commission to get through the process of, the regulations are complex. You're dealing with a lot of state forms and things like that. So There are towns that pay a conservation agent to help the commission, guide the commission through the process of getting the paperwork done properly and that kind of thing. Now, we don't have a lot of, there isn't enough coming through Northfield probably for us to have a full-time person
No, this
or the
is
budget to do
detailed.
it.
No, actually, Mike, I remember, this has come up before.
We are working on that through Frog, of a multi-town administrative assistant. You call him a wetland specialist.
And we're still on that, whether that's just going to be administrative clerk kind of thing or actually professional help to know
Right, every
about
time
the
that's come up,
regulations.
I've always said,
So-
we've always checked, yes, that's one of the ones, the wetlands, that we've always affirmed that's one of the ones we would
And
be
it's-
interested if they put that program together.
It's a lot to ask of a volunteer board to try to know these regulations and be able to implement them properly for the state.
Well, yeah, it seems like it's a very complex law. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's a very long one too.
That's why I wanted to present it to you
Yeah.
guys to understand that we
Yeah.
are dealing with something that's very, I mean, I know, but a lot of times,
Yeah.
like, and I mean, Andrea has an idea of
It's-
how law can be, but I don't know how much everybody knows.
You're in a very difficult balancing position, right? Which is you're enforcing, upholding, but you're also explaining and educating. And so sometimes you just have to be careful that, one side of the scales isn't, you're always in that fluid point. That's what I understand from being on the Historical Commission. I think that's even more delicate. And the conscom, because you're talking about people's property.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So-
we're trying
That-
to
right.
help people through the process to be able to do what they want to
Right.
do and follow the
Right.
regulations and do it properly.
Yep.
So since a lot of your powers derive from what appears to be Chapter 131, Section 40,
MGL.
at what point do you involve the state in your affairs in a process?
We have to file everything with the state. So when someone sends us a notice of intent or, an RDA or some of these other documents, when those things are submitted to us, we usually try to guide and advise. We take a neighbor approach and we try to guide and advise them on what is possible, how they can go about something, and then whatever comes of it has to be submitted to the state.
Okay.
So once we submit it to the state, then it's in their hands. We do try to take an approach, though, to try to have them present it to us. Would you say that that's accurate?
Right, and it goes to the state at every level. So when an applicant applies for paperwork, they send it to us, that actually goes to the state as well. So if there's a red flag in that paperwork, that the state circuit rider may contact us to give us a heads up of things to look out for.
Okay.
If we have particular questions, we can reach out to that person as well. But that's more of in complex kind of situations. We
Yeah.
might try to get some guidance before we act on something.
So what powers of enforcement do you have?
We don't.
Do you have, okay.
We
It's the
have our
state.
guidance, it's all with the state.
Gotcha.
So that's why we at every point try to find a form of bringing people into compliance.
Right.
Often we do that through a notice of intent so that they can talk to us, we can advise and guide, and then, as that process is ongoing, we then put it through the state. But we put it through the state with our state saying that we're approving this, or we're trying to do, and so they understand that us as professionals are advising these people along these lines. And if there's ever a point where there's an issue, they do come back and they get a hold of us.
Okay.
And the state certainly does have the final say. If there's an application that comes in and we allow something we try to approve something that shouldn't happen, the state is going to see that and kind of call us out on that.
And that's Mark Stinson?
That's right.
You deal with him?
Yeah.
And is he a reasonable guy to work with? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
got a good reputation.
good reputation?
Yeah, and
Lots
he's
of
been
years of
he's been at
experience.
it for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, if I ever have to get a hold of somebody with the Conservation Commission, should I use the correspondence coordinator or should I go through the chair? Because,
Sure.
if I want to, because this is where I'm a little confused, because sometimes it's like, I'm the chair of the select board. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, they can, but, I also have somebody like, well, if I can't answer it, then I can refer them to my town administrator or to some administrative professional that acts in a correspondence capacity. So I'm just trying to think like, what's the best way that I could, if I need to reach out or something like
Well,
that.
what we normally do, if it's helpful, is unless it seems urgent, like if there's an urgent matter, then we would generally try to reach the chair. We don't tend to want to give out people's personal phone numbers and emails. But some people have been here 35 years, and so people get to know it anyway. But if it's not so urgent, we would then say, send an email to the ConsCon's email, and they will answer you. So that we try and keep track of that. It's also on record. It's a log, and it allows the ConsCom person who answers to say, okay, we'll take that to the committee. That's a matter for the committee, and then move that through that process. If it's an emergency, obviously we try to reach the chair and say, hey, there's this emergency, and then the chair has to decide, do I have to call a meeting? Is it something that has to be acted on immediately? Can I give them emergency guidance? I mean, that's how we go if we get it here. We don't like to say, oh yeah, sure, just give Bill a call. Here's his cell. Like,
No.
if we can help that.
Yeah, I usually advise that you send it to, for that exact reason, to the email, because it creates a document. And what will happen is I will then forward this question out. We don't respond back or talk. I send information out, and then if somebody wants to pick up and make a phone call, then they can do that if it's a guidance advisement kind of thing. Right. Sometimes people, hey, what do I do with my property? Well, then I send that email out, and usually, if someone wants to pick it up and make a phone call, they can. Otherwise, that goes on the agenda. We don't discuss, so this information goes out. Yeah. The only time that I have responded to something is usually either if it's important, I will call, Bill and ask him if he wants me to respond. Yeah. And then through that, I will, give a documented response on something to try to pass out some understanding of a concept of what's going on. Okay. But for the most part, if you send an email in, it gets put on the agenda. I'll let people know about it, especially if there's documentation, because a lot of times we're a very document-laden kind of commission. So people are sending us, reams and reams and reams of studies or things like that. And so I send those studies out so everybody has time to read those. And then that goes on the agenda, and then we talk about everything at that point. Just because we would be there for forever if we sat and read everything new. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And the other thing to know is that we understand that, and when I started, nobody had town emails except town staff, and not even all the town staff. So it's been a big concerted effort on my part over the last 4 or 5 years to actually get emails out for every committee, and we're slowly doing. We still don't have them for everything, but we're slowly working our way there and getting people who said. So I know the people who might not have known that there's a ConsCom email. They may have always just contacted Bill, and so we're trying to slowly steer the ship through that process, because that is the documentation process, and we don't need Bill's email being, that official correspondence, because then Bill's email is subject to every question under the sun. So we're trying to move that. And we're doing that with all the departments. And it's slow because not everybody's realizing that, but we're trying to make sure those get on the website. We're trying to tell people, email the official department, and we're slowly working our way through getting them, departments and committees and boards, all their own emails, so that we aren't handling this to people's personal emails or some email that they've created that when they leave, they take it with them and we never see it again. So that is a change that's happening.
So what I like to say when it comes to organizational behavior is that, we as elected officials sleep well at night because we have a very talented administrative staff that handles a lot of our problems for us. That's what they're paid for. So when it comes to that, it just really helps to have like a communication outline kind of like set in place so that we're not chasing everybody's names all over the place or something like that. But at the end of the day, when you are, and like for the select board, I mean, the reason why we don't know a lot about what you do is, first of all, we haven't seen you. I can't even remember when the last time we had the conservation come in.
Not in the time I've been on the select board.
Yeah, so it's probably been at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But
you invite us and we come.
Yeah, that's great. And you're appointed by the select board, so you handle a lot of the things that we don't know a lot about, because you have the passion, the education, and the interest for it, and that's really appreciated. So I just
good point.
I just don't want to think that we're all like butting each other's heads over certain issues or something like that, because that's not what this is about. I think in the 6 years I've been doing this, I've been trying to bridge relationships that have existed bridge the gaps that have existed with different departments in town. And the last thing I want to do is create that at the end of another select board term for myself. So, yeah. So I just wanted to say that. But I have these documents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I have the next 10 days off of work. So yeah, that's great. So I'm going to be reading this. Because I always take an interest in policy. That was my focus in grad school. So just so that I have a better understanding of it. So yeah.
Especially because it was Carter. He did an excellent job in '77 making that executive
Good old
order.
Jimmy.
It follows on the heels of the floodplain executive order as well, which I can't remember the numbers of, but that's another one that kind of the Wetlands Act abuts to. So if you have some spare time and you can't sleep, those are excellent things to read.
Great.
And you just passed a new floodplain
Floodplain
bylaw
bylaw,
in the
yep.
town, so if you're ever really bored, we have a brand new floodplain bylaw that FEMA forced but needed to be updated.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And just a reminder to the citizens, the CONSCOM email is on the town website. And so if folks want to send an email to the CONSCOM website, the CONSCOM email, then that would be either answered by someone who knows what they're talking about, or disseminated to the group and talked in a group by folks who are working hard to help citizens.
So
I don't think that link works.
The CONSCOM email?
Unless I'm not.
I think so.
seeing it.
Isn't that the
Is
new
it?
one?
yeah, it does.
It does. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I would just be careful on getting questions answered via email, because none of you outside of a public meeting has any authority to answer questions as an individual. And if it lands on different people and you answer it in slightly different ways, then it makes your public meeting harder, because then when you actually discuss it and a customer or somebody, a citizen who's effectively coming in like a customer, then might have conflicting, or in their minds, conflicting information and conflicting contacts. So if I were you guys, I would discuss a procedure that, like you had said, you get the email and the email's received, thank you, we put it on the next agenda.
That's usually what happens.
Right. But if that's usually what happens, then make that your procedure and then just follow it religiously, right? Because nobody wants to take extra time outside of a meeting to do things on behalf of the committee only to be in a difficult situation, right? Speaking from experience on the Historical Commission. So I would be really, really careful about your procedures and make sure you discuss those as a group, write them down, put them on the webpage as needed, clean up the webpage so that if somebody has questions, it's clear like which link on the state government website you're going to, because it's not clear right now. There's 2 different links and one of them's broken. So I appreciate very much, because I know how much effort and how much time and how many years, especially Mike and Bill, have put into this.
And Charlie Blanker also.
Yeah, I know. Charlie he's another one. He's been on there forever, in a good way. So
I just
so I do want to say thank you, and that we appreciate that, and then maybe like schedule something going forward so it's an update and we can renew, like with questions about wetlands. Also, the budget's coming up. So is the clerk topic coming up again?
Well,
Because we've done that. That's come up before.
Well, the biggest problem we ran into is that when I started, they couldn't. They had the job posting out for a year. I mean, nobody, and then somebody was who had been there and then left. So one of the things was to create the secretary, the clerk position would take the minutes, but there was some discrepancy over the board clerk's role because the board clerk is taking minutes. So we tried to offer that assistance as at least initially as a stopgap, because we knew there was nobody on the board who could do anything, and in terms of, or at least this clerk wouldn't do anything in terms of paperwork, because that's the kind of thing we could get. We could get sort of secretarial and that kind of administrative assistance for a number of boards, because there's a number of boards that had the need, but couldn't get 10, hours a month here, 10 hours a month here. So we created that position to try and cover that need. Unfortunately, was not the understanding that we could get the conscom. We'd like, look, just start with the minutes, but Bill wanted, or Charlie, I don't know, wanted a full clerk position, then we couldn't fill it. We never could fill it. We advertised
enough
it.
hours.
Well, the problem is it doesn't have enough hours for the expertise you want.
I think the last one I was familiar with was somebody was hired that just couldn't, their schedule didn't allow them to come to our meetings.
Well,
so there was a challenge there even just to get the
And the good
minutes.
news is we
Right.
have Robin Conley, who
Robin
was on
stepped
the,
up. Yes.
she was on the committee for many, many years and moved out of Northfield, so she can no longer be on the committee.
Right.
But she has been doing the minutes, and
Right.
she is so dedicated, and we're really grateful for her time.
Yeah. We
But-
worked pretty closely
So she
with
stepped
her.
into the gap,
She
and it
did.
was awesome. But always going
Yeah.
forward,
So she's still doing the minutes?
She's still
She
doing the
is.
minutes.
she's not on the commission.
She's not a voting member of the commission.
Okay.
Yeah, we worked with Robin when she came on board to make sure that we could get some assistance for her to get her, show her where the files were, show her the minutes that we had.
But-
We met with Robin several times. She was
But now,
great.
I know she's awesome, but she's no longer in Northfield. So does she need to be hired as a part-time clerk for them?
I don't think she's paid. She's never been asked. I didn't even know
None
she
of
was.
us-
No one.
She's
None of us are
volunteering.
paid. We're all volunteer.
Yeah.
So it didn't even occur to us
No,
to
I
have
know
her
that,
paid.
but now that she's
I
out of
didn't even know
town
she
and
was.
she's-
Nobody told me she was still taking the minutes. This is the first I've heard.
So usually on the minutes, you're identifying who took the minutes too.
It's all that's up there on the top of the minutes. If you look at our minutes, it says who's present and who is everything.
Yeah, I see all that. It wasn't clear to me who was taking the minutes
Oh,
because she
I
takes
think
them
it
in a
does say it,
slightly
doesn't
different way.
I don't know. I haven't looked at them. So
Anyway.
so we went round and round with that discussion because we weren't really able to fill that. That's why I was pretty excited about the FERCog a couple of times when they've asked, is anybody interested? And we all kept
Yeah.
saying, yes, we're all interested to get like a little bit of expertise because no one of the small towns had enough time.
So did Bill already submit his budget?
Yes.
We have because we haven't come to any decision or conclusion at the last meeting
Yep.
discussing what we want to do with technology. We have no further requests beyond what our usual budget is. It's an ongoing discussion right
Okay.
now, and there's a few things we're exploring. I do want to bring up one thing when it comes to doing a report out for the board. Though the process is though the process of submission is a public process, so anybody could technically go in and see what's going on. When it comes to us reporting, I would not feel comfortable, and I don't know about the rest of the board, I would not feel comfortable, or commission, I'm so sorry, about reporting on particular properties, because I feel that not only is that an issue with PII, publicly identified information, but it's also, this is a televised thing, and I don't want anyone to feel like we're putting them on blast if I was to come here and discuss particular incidences.
No. We're
Okay,
not
so I just
asking
wanted
for that
okay.
at the select board.
Oh, thank
No,
goodness,
that's
that
not-
would not make me feel comfortable, and I
No,
don't
and
wanna-
sometimes you're doing
No.
adjudicatory hearings and things, and you can't be in that
You
position.
cannot. Yeah, you need to be clear.
So
That's why,
think
I
that's the
wanted to be
question.
clear about what you wanted me to report
What
on,
is the
because
report
that's
that
the
you're
kind of
asking
thing
for?
where
I'm not
I
asking for a report.
okay.
I'm asking for an update. Personally, I'm asking for an update and collaboration,
Okay.
right? So that the next time you guys come before us, it doesn't start out with you're not getting support and you guys don't understand what we're doing and how the intro went. It's not how I would normally like to hear from any sort of committee coming before the board, particularly if there was no individual discussion before that was mentioned at a public meeting.
And interestingly,
Yeah.
so you suggested that we standardize our web page, and I think that's a great idea.
No, not standardized,
What if
update.
we standardize our responding methods? It might be, if we're as a board, if the select board, if the town were looking for reports from boards and commissions, maybe we could make that cyclical, right? Like every
That's what we have
quarterly
been,
or
well, we have been doing depending on, some come like all the time, depending on the issue, right? And then some come quarterly, some come once a year, like 350th's due to come again, rec commission's due to come again. We got them into a cycle, starting with Heath and then to me and then to Alex. And you guys have never been on that cycle. And I
Right.
apologize for that.
I'm also hoping
Yeah.
that you'll take the opportunity. I think I sent you the reporting form for the new booklet. I sent it, I think, to the Concom.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten it, let me know. But we have the new report that's going to come out, which every department, as boards and committees have done, and I don't know if you've been one of them. Honestly, I'd have to look. I've looked at so many of the annual report that comes out. Do you guys do an annual report every year?
No, but I would love for you to
Because the town
resend that
does
to
that.
me,
I
because
will
if
resend
it's just a certain accounting, like we did 14 RDAs,
Well,
we
it's
did
both.
20, you
There's,
know,
it'll say
NOIs or
Conscom,
something.
and we usually do like, we'll do like the chair and then your Conscom email. And then there's a narrative part. You can write
Yeah.
3 sentences or 3 paragraphs, and then there's
It's-
usually a table at the
It's like
bottom.
this.
So-
We're doing one for this.
Right,
select
and then
board.
you
So,
can put in whatever you want that you figure that annually you want to report on. Yes, we did 3 hearings for this, or, you know, put those in, and then how many you do in the
It's
years.
just like some
Yeah.
of the things that we do are so not estranged, but they're so different.
But you don't
than
have
a
to
lot
report all of
people.
that.
It's really, you know, like it's not something that is easy to explain. Like I definitely got appropriately so called back to define all my, you know, all my abbreviations and
acronyms.
stuff like
Yes.
that, which it was totally
It's like-
correct, but it
But
was just
the-
like
When
something that I
when
forgot.
like coming up after this, we're inviting the police chief to come up to discuss things. He's not going
Mm-hmm.
to discuss sexual assaults or stuff where there's a reasonable expectation of privacy for people, but there are other things that go on in his department that he is able to speak about, like
Policy and
the
procedure.
policy and procedure.
Yeah.
So speaking of procedure, have you guys ever thought about maybe having a new chair or rotating the chair position like boards would say usually do?
Yeah, now that we have I'm sorry.
I try it every year. Comes up every year.
You mean Bill's tried every year.
That's the thing is we've just gotten to full membership in the last couple of years. So
That's true.
it's something that's the commission. I mean, like these guys have been pulling triple duty for years.
Yeah.
So I mean, the fact that there's enough people that are breathing in a circle, we're just thrilled about
Yeah.
it. To be honest, you know, like
All right, so I'll send that report. It also has, and the section on the bottom is metrics. So pick whatever metrics you want to report on each year. It's up to
Yeah.
you.
Put
You don't
that-
have to go
we're
into,
gonna do height.
yeah,
Just kidding.
whatever you want.
All right.
So
Well,
I'll send it.
thank
okay.
you so much.
I think that wraps up our discussion for now.
Yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, like we always do. Like if something is hot or trendy in the Concom world or something, or anything like new updates to laws or something cool that's happening
in
or
and
something.
explain it,
We
yeah.
love that stuff. That's like we're information traffickers in town. We don't like to. There's this whole like notion that previous generation. I do believe this that exists in our world where it's like the people that sit at this table are all these like backdoor like friend gossiper people to get all their information out. And I'm trying very hard to break that notion by getting people to come in front. We've been trying that for years so that we don't have to have these phone calls and these conversations. So so I no hard feelings, Bill, at all. I mean, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to me not knowing what's going on. And having a phone call is sometimes the most old-fashioned way to figure out what's going on, and sometimes that doesn't always work out the way it's supposed to. So
Well, and
it is what it is. But
Yeah.
I just hope in the future we can just do this again and smile and talk, because that's the only
maybe
way.
you guys should try a redo after the.
That's
after
the only
the
way
meeting.
government moves
Yeah.
forward.
And I feel that it's all
Do 'em
because
all
we're
again.
very passionate about what we do.
Oh, of
And I
course.
think that that's an excellent thing. That's why I think it's important that we all recognize we are
Passion is
all
good.
passionate.
Yes.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. I'd be at home
Right.
with my cats.
Right.
You know, like.
I'd
so,
be knitting. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
so I
Okay.
mean, I think that's a good thing. We just, building relationships and working together, I think is very important. But yeah. And I wasn't even going to say anything tonight. So there we go.
Excellent. You can't
Thank
help
you
yourself.
very
I know,
much,
it's
Mike.
hard.
Thank you.
Thank
Tori,
you very much, you guys.
Sarah,
Thank you, guys.
and Bill. We appreciate your time.
Say hi to Kim.
Okay, bye.
See you, Bill.
Enjoy the warm weather.
Yeah. Jealous. Oh, I'm so excited about this. Okay. We doing police?
Yes.
Yes,
might
so
as
we'll
well
move
your
on
chief
to our first. So I see we have some new members in our panel. We did have citizens' concerns earlier, but
We did?
we did.
I thought it came after, according to the thing, it comes after the Conservation Commission update.
I don't know what document you're reading, but our
you
citizens
moved
does
it
it
ahead.
books.
We moved because I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
The citizens' concerns had to be at 6:30 when we make an appointment. Not the citizen concerns, the Conservation Commission. When we have a timed appointment, we always start that appointment at that time.
Right.
And if other things don't have timing on them, we'll move them in front of that until we get to the time.
No, we don't know that, so,
Yeah.
I came after 6:30 because.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I can understand that. If I were reading it that way.
Yes, she did.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would like to just say.
Well, if you'd like to, please come up to the table. Yeah, all I'm trying to say in the end of this here is that, you weren't here. We had it earlier. Come on up and say your piece. Sorry, John.
I'm from the Open Space Committee and echoing Patterfield's.
Oh, just your name for the record.
Name
Joanne
and
McGee.
address, yeah.
Joanne McGee.
Yep.
She probably talked about the Millbrook Trails and the fact that closing off School Street means that the trails aren't continuous. Did she talk about that?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
I went and looked, did you explain why the street was closed off? I'm not sure that I know.
So we can't, this is during citizen concerns. We're not going to answer questions.
Okay.
It's just for you to state your concerns.
Okay. I'm not sure why the bridge is closed off. There's Jersey barriers there. And it's a real problem because you can't walk from one part of the trail, from the Sunshine Trail to the Vista Trail. And when I went and looked at it tonight, I realized it would be a very simple maneuver to get somebody down there to just move the two Jersey barriers just like a foot. Instead of making it straight across, move it like this, and a pedestrian could walk through from one trail to the next. I thought I would come up with a solution. Building a bridge right there for pedestrians is going to take time and it's going to take money, but it would be really simple to move that barrier so that you could edge through, just a foot. Who would we talk to about that?
The select board. It's, Tom will be in on the 9th at their meeting to discuss. We've given him this topic as well.
He'll be when?
January 9th is their next meeting.
Is the Select Board's next meeting.
Right.
And Tommy Walker, who is the head of the Highway Department, I know you know that, but I'm saying
Yeah.
it for other people.
Will be
so
here.
he will be there, and he's the one that's in charge of things like.
I understand that, but if it's, I don't think I think it's not something that can wait till January 9th.
Well, it's going to have to. So, and that's all
But
I'm
I
going to
mean,
say
when there
about
was a
it.
tree down across Collar Cemetery Road, I sent them an email and they took care of the tree right away. They didn't wait for the next highway department meeting. So things can be done.
It's going to be an agenda topic.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we can actually discuss solutions and understand what the risks are. Yeah, we've already kind of covered that. We can't discuss at length.
Yeah, we can't deliberate on
Yeah.
a topic that's not on the agenda because that's how towns get sued. That's how we get sued. So we don't want that. But thank you for your concerns. Is there anybody else? Any other additional citizens' concerns? No? Okay.
Thanks, Joanne.
John. Please come up.
We have lots of topics for you on the agenda.
Lots of topics.
Sure.
Speaking of updates.
How's it
Hello.
Good, how are you?
So, the first order of business that we'll take care of is the resignation letter from Chris Miner. And if the board will just entertain me, I will read it. So, to whom it may concern, I would like to notify you that I am resigning from my position as full-time patrolman for the town of Northfield effective December 13th, 2023. Thank you very much for the opportunity you have given me to work for the town of Northfield. It was an honor and a privilege to serve this community for the short time that I have. I am forever grateful for the relationships I have built over the time that I have been here and all that I have learned. Thank you for all the support you have given me during my time here. I wish the town the best. So I'll just I guess I'll just start out on that I'm sorry that he's leaving. The first thing that one of the many things that I asked Chris when he was in front of us, when he was appointed as a patrol officer, is this: is if he really wants this position. It's the same question I asked him when I was first elected back in 2018, whenever the last time he, and both of his answers were yes. So I'm just really, really disappointed and really taken back that perhaps he didn't mean that. And I only hope that things work out for him. And but like, we had a hiring process that we designed. He was selected because he was the best candidate for the town, and now he's gone. And it's just like, oh, well, we're in this position again. So I'm really sorry to see him go. So
Sorry. We have the same remote. It turned both TVs off. I didn't realize.
Sorry, I just sent a text to Tyler. Yeah, thanks.
It's still
Tyler.
recording. It just, unfortunately,
I was a little unnerved when I didn't see the camera.
sorry.
Chair,
yes.
may I
Please.
comment? Because I don't know this officer personally, but I do know sometimes there have been times in my life when things went awry or everything got mixed up and things changed after a little while. And I'd love to give someone the benefit of the doubt that there wasn't an intent to not perform, but life happens, and so I just
And
wanted to add that.
I do want to say, I did have a discussion with him when he came up to talk to me. And it's just, I think John will agree, it's one of those positions, being in a police department, it's a fit. Sometimes it fits, sometimes it just doesn't fit. And it's nobody's fault. And it's no reflection on the character of the department or the person. It just doesn't work out. And I think that's, the case here, where there was a mutual agreement. I don't think there's harboring of any bad feelings on any side. No one acted inappropriately. There's no skeletons lurking in the closet. It just wasn't the right fit.
Okay, shall we move on then?
So,
I move that we accept with regret the resignation letter from Officer Chris Minor.
So there's a motion on that.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then, what are the next steps? Are we going to repost and get on
we're posted.
back into the hiring saddle, so to speak?
Yep.
Yeah.
Posted, putting the word out there, so hopefully we get some applicants and we'll go back to square one.
Do we need to select board members again?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. We'll reach.
Okay.
I think we have actually received a couple of candidates. I can't say that I've looked them over to see how many of them.
5 or 6 on my estimate.
And there's only a
2,
couple.
maybe 3 are qualified.
Right, that are actually officers.
Okay.
So when we get close, probably the next meeting you'll be picking for a
All
screening
right, I just
committee.
want to.
Unless you think you want to do it sooner.
So I just
I
want
want
to
to
make
do it
sure.
as soon as possible.
So you could pick a member
Yeah.
to be on a screening committee.
Well, I would like to be on that.
Me too.
Great.
You cool with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Do we need a vote? No?
I don't think we've.
It's really-
We'll
done.
reprise our
Yeah. think it's
police
necessary.
officer screening role again. Okay,
I
we're
might-
ready to go.
I
If
might
we're-
mix it up from my end, just so everyone's aware who's going to participate.
Okay,
So
Okay.
that should be interesting.
Discussion on approach to review updated police department's policies and procedures. There are a lot of them.
sorry.
Yeah.
I think you might want to I was thinking you might want to be part of it while you guys figure out how you want to.
Yeah.
And these, I think that the chief said that a lot of the new policies are about coming in line with regional policies, right? A lot of the
Yes.
policies are very similar to, so it's not your fault that they're so humongously long.
Yeah. I can't either take credit for them or the blame for them. But that being said, they come from accredited police departments. It comes from them as chiefs of police, and also they've been implemented by accredited police departments. So they have to go through a pretty strategic review. It's just a matter of contailing them so they match Northfield.
Yep. So my notes were, after I got over the initial shock of how many documents there were, which I called them about. My first point, I have 3 points. First point was, most are very detailed procedures, especially under the investigations chapter, and involve very specific officer actions on a scene. For example, who calls whom, which form to use, handling of evidence, taking of measurements, etc. My personal opinion is I don't think those require deep scrutiny from the select board. Maybe what would be helpful is to get an explanation of what they are and how they are followed regionally, so there is consistency. And then I think there's a few under the admin and operations chapters that should be reviewed, especially at our next public meeting. For example, vehicular pursuits and body cameras, because we've discussed those at prior meetings. And if there's any updating to them or not, then I think we should make sure those are front and center. Also, I thought it was interesting to know that there are policies and procedures for working with transgender individuals and people who are hearing impaired. And I think there's some things like that that would be interesting for folks to know. Not that we would necessarily change anything, but that there are actual policies and procedures. And also, I think the select board needs some explanation from the chief and the town administrator on how police policy and procedures overlap or don't with employee policies and procedures, for example, sexual harassment, sick and injury leave. And that's all I had.
I sent you an email
I saw.
while I was in the hallway.
Yeah.
So that being said, yes, I agree. Andrea and I should sit down and we should see how there's an overlap between the policies and procedures with the town policies and procedures regarding those. I think it would be nothing more than for me to just move the town things and incorporate it into the policies and procedures for that and make sure there's nothing that's conflicting.
Exactly, because I think from an educational standpoint, so we're always referring to whomever the audience is in here or at home, I want to make sure that while it might be completely understandable and we would definitely approve it, that we would still want to go over it and make sure that people understand it, because we've also been going through that with the fire department. So, and that's also next on the agenda. So I think it behooves everyone to know that we're consistently going through policies and procedures for each department. And police is especially voluminous and detailed, and I would expect fire would be or could be the same in terms of the actual like firefighting or the actual policing type activities. I don't feel qualified to say, you know, you should handle that scene differently, you know, if everyone in the region is handling, for example, one of the policies was on handling dead bodies. So I'm not really going to weigh in on that so much as just be aware of that it exists and that you guys have specific procedures that officers must follow.
So perhaps it would be best, like what we've seen before in the past, is that you know your department and you know how your department works for Northfield, and sometimes policies are written through the Mass Chiefs as generic, and you kind of like tweak it so that it works for your municipality. So perhaps if we do like a series over the next few months or something like that, where every other select board meeting or something, you come in and present hot ones that just need to be addressed so that we can make a decision on how to incorporate it into the town.
Yeah, I think the only problem with that is he's trying to get the whole kit and caboodle, for lack of a better expression. You're trying to get the whole thing approved, right?
Well, let's be honest about it. I'm dealing with a binder down there that's, people were signing signatures from whatever year. It's not like I inherited a good set of policies and procedures, so it's no worse taking longer to do it. It's just my suggestion. I think I sent in an email, which is, I think if we want to do it in a timely manner, if each select board member is given 10 of them, then we could go through them a lot faster, and then each select board member that was given their 10 could have better eyes on the ones that they saw, as opposed to trying to absorb all the information, which honestly is a problem for me too, because I'm a human being, and if you were to print those out, it'd be about that thick. And so
we don't want to print
so the most amount of eyes
That's the truth.
that being said, there's been a lot of eyes on them anyways, because they've been passed down from Mass Chiefs of Police and Shelburne Falls and Greenfield, and they've been reviewed and reviewed and reviewed.
I think we could find a mix.
Yeah.
I think the select board members, personally, based on what I looked at, I think we should look at the investigations folder, decide if we even want to tackle it. Because the stuff in there is so specific
That might be a sign for Heath. Heath would be a perfect person
Right.
to take on the, because he's done
If
it.
he wants to, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, as a board, we could chunk the work a little bit more, and if we are going to look at investigations, maybe put that at the bottom of the pile and go for the vehicular pursuit, the body cameras, the things where people are, in the public, are going to have more questions, like how people are handled, how they're dealt with, temporary booking, which I noticed you put on one of them, we don't do it because we don't have the holding facility, or we don't do detention, that whatever policy that
It's
was.
not a very secure or tactically.
No, so
able
I think we
place
could
for it.
kind of, I would ask the select board, my colleagues, to just kind of go through that list and go, do you even want to tackle the investigations chapter individually, or is it enough that we all review it and then come back with our questions? And we've all been approaching you, it sounds like, with our individual questions anyway. I'm just looking at a
And
way to
also,
Tackle it
This seems like
in a shorter time.
a really long topic, and I wonder about doing it in a normal meeting. If our goal is to educate the citizens, I mean, what about if we had a roundtable? If we went and, I mean, I think sitting and talking through all of them in one of our meetings is going to take up a lot of one meeting.
I don't think we need to, that's my point.
Oh, I see.
Like the investigations chapter, that would
Right,
be.
but pursuit, okay.
But we have done, to that point, we have done body camera, we have done vehicular pursuit, and we were able to tackle those like in a half an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the use of force and things of that nature is something
It's
that
pretty
obviously
standard.
everyone would want to make sure that those, but it's like the mundane things. Like if you were to read it, you'd be like, yeah, of course that's the way that you
Right.
tow a car and get do the towing
Right.
for you. So
Right.
but it's a lot. It's a lot of information because a lot of officers use this for in the moment A, when you're training a new person, or B, in the moment where you can't
Right.
remember what the standard is nowadays. and
Because you
might
haven't had
quickly
one
have
of
to
those
review it.
situations.
So
in a
that being
while,
said,
yeah.
I also will propose that I purchased a new online program called PMAM. And I've never used it before, but other agencies use it like Greenfield. So it's like a yearly subscription.
Yeah.
So once they're approved, I'm going to put that in there. And maybe, I know that the select board approves their policies and procedures, but it's kind of like anything that they should be changed quite frequently because
They should be living documents.
that's it. They're a living document. So maybe if I connect one of the select board members or all of you, so that you could see every time we change the document, and then as opposed to have to go through this every year or 2 years from now on, you can also have access to what we have access to. And then what happens is it pulls up the policy and procedure, so you don't have to read the whole thing every time. It just tells you what just changed,
Oh, okay.
and that would be a
That'd be great.
future way
But we
to
have
make
to
it
do
so
the
that
initial shovel it out first.
we have to shovel it out, and I think everyone's point here is that, again, I'm not trying to hide any policy and procedures or put something in there that's tricking anyone, but it is pretty standard, and compared to what we have, it's,
You're actually trying to put a whole manual in place,
yes.
right? And that's basically what the fire department needs to do as well. That's where we're at.
I'm trying to do it
Yeah.
before we get sued, because it'd be a lot easier.
good.
You know, that's the timeline for me, because, you know, we're always waiting for the worst case scenario to happen, and it could happen at any moment, and I feel like, well, that's why the timeline to me is like, I don't want to put it 6 months out, because I know that they're good. I just need them to be reviewed so we get them implemented, we get up to
Right.
speed as quick as possible. But at the same time, like you mentioned, investigations, I personally probably wouldn't mind some people reading even those if you split them up, just to have a second set of eyes from the town.
I
Yeah.
skim them. I'm not saying
Yeah.
don't read them, but I'm just, in terms of like which ones, and maybe this is where Alex, your experience comes to the fore, is which ones do you want to bring in front of the select board? Or if we go through them and we feel strongly like, oh, for example, how you deal with people who are hard of hearing, how you deal with transgender individuals, for example. Bring that forward. That's just something I noticed. Right?
Those are what you're talking
So I'm just
about.
trying to come up for an approach so that we're not 6 months out, and we're also not like sucking up each meeting with every single policy and procedure document that you have out there.
I hate long meetings. I actually really hate them. So
Yeah.
it's just like there's things that like when a police department, there's a certain how do I word this? Where elected officials can have like a strong say, like we value this in our police department, we value this type
Yeah.
of policy and procedure, and therefore like that's the rule that we're going to push forward for it.
Like community policing. So
Community policing, and then like doing the thing like vehicular pursuits and stuff, where
Yeah.
it's not possible for it to work in some municipalities. So there's like a rule, a policy where it's like, all right, you're not going to engage in those, or you're going to try really hard not to, or something like that. And just stuff like that. I can't really think of anything else at the
Well,
top of my
and
head.
we approved vehicular policy before, and there's one basic change in there, which I saw and read that I'm like, that's okay. That's a no-brainer. Bring it before the select board and
Yeah.
get that one out of the way.
I was just trying to pull them up here. So we don't have to, we also, excuse
We
me
just
if I'm
have to
wrong about
divvy
this, can't we have the discussion if you split them up amongst yourselves at some point, and then
Yeah.
can't I just talk, each one of you just reach out to me independently as you go through your
Is
assigned
that how
pen?
you want us to proceed?
I think that's the best way, that way we're not doing it in this forum
Yeah.
the whole time, and we can have more personal discussions about it. And
So
just
you
talk
want
to me,
each,
and
you want each select board to take a chapter.
Yep, go through them and assign them, and,
Okay.
and maybe whatever ones that you feel like matches more of your expertise and your past experiences. Like I said, Heath might want to do investigations because he was a police officer.
Right.
And Meisner works at the jail, so maybe he'd want to take some of those that he feels like he knows a little something about. But
Detention and
then
building.
once we all are on the
I
same
can tell you a little
page,
bit about that.
so once we work out all those kinks, then we just come together and we
All
approve
right.
them.
Well, let's take an approach. That's all I want to get out of tonight is let's take an approach so I know what I'm reading and what I'm responding to. But I skimmed all of them and dove into certain ones. And
Yeah.
I could not care less, but I would not, for me, choose investigations. Admin and ops, fine.
So why don't we do this? I mean, is it titled by section, by chapter?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
But they're not evenly titled. So why don't I
Why don't you just
Split 'em up
tomorrow,
to what
why
you
don't
think
I
is even.
email everyone, and then I will have them all listed, and then we could sign up via email and figure out who's doing what by email, and then that's how we'll start tackling it.
Okay.
Does that
And
we're
we're not violating open meeting law.
no, you're
Yeah.
just going to tell them what
Because we're
section
only
you want.
pulling.
Okay,
Right.
I'm just
Well,
double
but not only
checking.
that is
To
you're
each
not,
other, we're
Right.
talking.
you're also not talking about it. It's like a meeting agenda.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking.
No
Does that
deliberation
work?
about
So
it.
tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow.
And then
depending
you
on
can
my
be
day.
responsible
Yep.
for making sure they all divvy them up.
Yep.
And then do we want to set a deadline? Because that would be useful to you also.
Well, I
'cause
mean,
we have a time that we want.
I mean, the 9th is 3 weeks. Is that too soon for people?
No.
No.
I think if you have 10 to 15 each, I don't think that
Yeah.
would be too bad.
So if you
No.
put it on the agenda for the 9th,
I'm
then
halfway
it's
there.
3, you
I
know,
know, bees are very
pick the ones you've already
I was
done,
like,
the otherwise.
Give me a beer and sign me up in front of my, I was just sitting there like, I'm going to be here in front of my computer for
Let
a
me
while. Okay,
I'm not, I'm just putting in my calendar, not texting someone.
okay.
Okay, so I'll put it on, make sure it gets on that agenda, and then you'll be responsible to kind of work out who's doing what.
Yeah.
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 So I already expressed my preference for stuff in admin and ops.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll take whatever is left over. I don't have a preference.
Okay. I'm not sure how I'm gonna formulate the email, but it'll be
Oh,
to
that'll be
everyone, and we'll
fun.
figure it out. Just
Oh,
What do you
John. What do you? I guess best way to ask this. What do you think about implementing tasers?
Is that in there? I
no,
didn't
that's
see
not
it.
in there.
Doesn't the department have something?
No,
I noticed
because
that.
we don't have tasers. So the tasers that I'm not a fan of
Interesting.
tasers. So I'll just
There
it's-
were some at some point.
we had tasers when we came, but it was like some people had them, some people didn't have them.
There wasn't a
When-
policy governing their use.
There's a policy at the
Okay.
time, but I got rid of the policy when I got rid of the tasers.
Oh, okay.
So there was no consistency. We didn't have anyone to train tasers. The tasers, when you pulled them out, half of them worked, half of them didn't work. Again, don't hold me to the half and half thing, but we had them where they weren't consistent. And everyone has different opinions on police tactics, so I guess everyone's stuck living with my opinions. Because I'm currently the chief of police, I'm not a big fan of tasers. But I know the pros and cons of them. I'm not saying that I'm right about that opinion. I've just worked in Brattleboro, Vermont with tasers. I've seen tasers basically be the cure-all for everything, and so a whole bunch of people being tased that don't need to be tased, and also
There's
tasers being,
health issues.
not to mention
risks
tasers not
associated.
always being the best solution to be used.
Yeah.
Sometimes people fall, they hurt themselves as they go down, they wear winter coats, And the biggest issue I saw was the consistency of having the training and then making sure everyone was up to speed.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I saw that in this town, it really makes it tough because you're a lot of times by yourself. And you would think that would be a good idea to have a taser, but you have to have a second use of force fairly quickly, and it would lead to the potential of the officer being harmed as they have their taser out and there's something happening where they actually should have had their other use of force out.
Gotcha.
So again, if we were at an agency where we had 2 people on all the time, then you could have one person out with their taser and then the other person out with their firearm, or a situation like that where you have different uses of force. But here, seconds matter, and the pros and cons I weighed out, it wasn't worth it. So, but I'm open to hear anything about it. We don't have to discuss it now, but
Yeah,
if you got an opinion,
No, that's
Thank you.
interesting. Thanks for bringing that up.
yeah, good catch.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we have a game plan. So,
Yay. Thank you.
how you doing?
Doing good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
important. It's, like, this is all nice and stuff, but at the end of the day, we care about our employees.
Oh, thank you.
So, you
Yeah.
doing all right?
Yeah, doing good. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Isn't this like the anniversary of
December
your...
6th will be my anniversary.
Ooh.
Oh, it was, mate.
Was it
2 years.
19th today? Yeah, 2 years. Yeah.
Wow, he's still here.
Excellent.
I keep thinking he's been here a year. Oh, no, 2.
I was thinking I was here
Time
10
flies
years.
by. Wow, we're so
Yeah.
happy to have you.
Yeah, no, I feel like pretty ingrained in the community and
Yeah.
with the town. It
You're
feels like I've
pretty
been here for a
visible,
while.
too.
Yeah. Mims just gave us a big platter of cookies, and it's like, how can I hate this job? I'm gonna gain about 10 pounds.
More cookies.
No, they're downstairs.
Okay.
You'll have to visit the police department.
Come by for some cookies.
We didn't know there was food in there.
So I guess you can, you guys are coming tomorrow to the town, 1 o'clock, senior center?
Remind me. Oh, the get together.
holidays?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we are going there.
Whoever we is.
Chad and I. Yeah.
So, Chair, I was also wondering if we might move up the warrant discussion, because there's an item that I would love the chief to be able to weigh in on the warrant, Article 3.
Here.
Oh.
Pass it out. It might be new. I don't know if it's the same one you have, but
I
it's,
thought it was. Oh, it's just a 2-pager?
it's just, I took the notes off, so
Oh,
it's
yes.
just the article.
Yeah,
I need a separate one.
yeah, that's fine, sure.
So, actually, because I knew that we had to have a meeting, and kind of in the spirit
Maybe
of
John wants to see one, I don't know.
reuse, is this
It's
a
just
different
one
one
page.
that's in?
It's just one page. So I took the notes out, so I don't know if it's completely different. I just made it short so you can look at the articles.
Okay.
It doesn't have all the notes.
Does John...
John want to see one?
Sure.
Just, they're talking about a specific article.
Yep, we're
3.
talking about specific Article 3. I called the chief in the interim to ask, I really thought as a citizen that the digital speed marker was very effective for me in noting and keeping, oh, I'm accidentally going a little bit over and stuff like that. And so I called the chief. I saw that we had some portable ones, and I asked about, the benefits of portable versus permanent. And it turns out that the chief had already secured, with Mallory's help, had secured a grant for a couple of digital enforcements that are permanent, digital enforcement signs that are permanent. And during our conversation, it seemed like there was there'd be, much as the school system PBRS is giving returning money to the town. There's potentially money in the police budget that will be returned to the town. And so it seemed like something that would be useful to include. So the article says, to see if the town would vote to spend $27,250 from the fiscal year 2024 police department salaries for the purchase of 8 stationary solar radar units, or take any other action thereon or in relation to. And so my point in bringing it forward was actually so that we could discuss it and see, whether it would be, I've spoken to several people in the town. They really like the idea of the ones that flash green and say thank you when you come back down, and they think that's a psychologically reinforcing item. And the cost that is listed there is based on the items that were, the invoices that were in the grant that was applied for. So the cost is $3,300 or something like that, and so that's the 8.
So if it's stationary, are these actually put into the ground using the highway department or MassDOT?
Yep, solar, so there would be a little bit of back work on them.
But they're not portable. They're
gonna be
solid and they
stationary.
go into
Yeah.
a specific location.
Gil has them, Bernardston
Yeah, I've
has
seen them.
so,
Yeah. And MassDOT talked about them for Main Street at one point, by the way.
Okay.
When the crosswalks were going in, they actually talked about one at either end of Main Street, 2 at either end of Main Street. So you already have 2 through the grant?
So we were recently approved for
I'm
the
just
grant
doing
we
the math.
applied for to have 2 of them.
Yep.
But it's going to take a little bit because those 2, if you're going to kind of rank our problem areas, Main Street and Gulf Road or Maple Street would probably be the largest. So
Yeah.
we're going to tackle Main Street first. But we have one slight issue with Main Street, which is we're going to put up two poles. They're solar, by the way, and so they're going to go where the 35-mile-an-hour signs are. So when you go onto Main Street, just past Maple Street, as you're heading towards the town hall here, there's a 35. And then when you're heading into town, just past the post office, there's a 35. That's where it goes from 40 to 35.
Right.
That being said, if we're going to go through all this, I talked to Andrea, and the town's tried in the past.
Yeah.
I think it's worth one last ditch effort
Me
to
too.
try to extend the 35-mile-an-hour zone before we place them where they're at. So
Yeah.
that requires a process for, I have to go onto the DOT system
Yes.
and request it. And so I'm hoping that it's not going to be like the normal kind of request where you have to have a traffic study. I have no idea what's going to happen, to be honest with you, but I'm going to try to at least move the 35 on the other side of Maple Street so people slow down before they get to Maple and Main, because we have accidents there.
Yep.
And almost, and on top of this, with Thomas Aquinas College, that as you're heading into town, like I don't think anyone's taken into account that their college campus is growing, and they like to walk quite a bit, and they go down to the bridge, and they also come down to town, and that's the crosswalk they use, and that should be at 35 also. So somewhere closer on the other end, so past the post office, closer to the college, probably on the north end, kind of between the college and the boat ramp, to lower it to 35.
That's where they were looking the last time, FYI. And the reason why I know that, one, because I'm interested in crosswalks, but 2, MassDOT always consults the Historical Commission to anything placed on Main Street. So we had specifically talked about before where the crosswalk is now of having having one of these there.
And there is a letter
Yeah.
from the town asking them to do this.
Yes.
What is it, 2 years old now? And
At least.
They said they were going to look into it, and then we
tackled it
just
before. We
poked them
tried
on
tackling it before John came on board
Did
too.
we just not poke it a month or so
Yeah.
ago and say, hey, we haven't heard from you?
Yeah.
Oh, we said we're doing our study. So I think when he does his request to ask them to do that, they shouldn't need to be studying this anymore. It's been a couple years now. They've told us they've been looking into
What are they
this.
doing this time of year? There's no snow, the ground's frozen.
Well,
sort
but
of,
they
so
don't know that they
should-
need a study.
I don't know if I want to do this in a televised version, but
No,
how much
but-
of the frontage does DOT responsible on?
Well, that
It depends.
changes depending on how far up you go.
Because those signs,
Depends on where you are.
yeah.
But
Worst
the whole,
case scenario, we could put up a sign, a radar sign on our own property, but I'm just.
Well, you won't do it down here because
Definitely
they
not
own
here, but
from
on that
Front
side,
Store.
yeah.
That narrows, so that
Yeah.
it could be a different thing. But we need to make sure that it's their approved speed limit because we
Yeah.
can't
you
change the
also,
speed limit.
you
on
know,
that.
we
we
need
are
to
in
we need to remain neutral on MassDOT because MassDOT actually we get a lot of support for them and they're
Yes.
huge in getting the Shell Bridge. So let's not forget that. But
And I've had no, just so you know, since
Yeah.
I've been here, they've
Yeah.
been nothing but, like for our
No, it's
350th
great.
parade, they've been great.
it's been much better.
Yeah.
But we still haven't addressed the 35 consistently on Main Street. I'd like to see that. And then secondly, where things get placed, they do have people who that's what their job is, like where to place crosswalks and things like that, so it's effective. So I would want that input on, and I would imagine based on anything that's a state highway, they would want to have that input anyway, right?
And the chief, in our notes, you'll see the note that I sent. There's a list of the prioritized, it's on the third to the last page.
Yep.
That the chief said what his 5 locations that he wanted to each in priority order.
Yep. Yep. And again, I'm not, it's, from my standpoint, I'm just getting the opinion based on the residents. So
Yeah.
where I go most often or hear that there's speeding issues,
Maple.
whether real or perceived, but if I were to be honest about them, that's the list of them. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that we have to put them at each one of those spots. There may be someone that doesn't like those, but I can't imagine that. I think
You're
most
not going to
I'd
like them
say-
if it's blinking in front of your bedroom at night. That's
That's the
the,
only
Yeah,
one.
placement will
Yeah.
be, we just
placement is going to
very
be critical.
important.
Yeah.
The other thing is,
But you also, according, well, I just want to say the finance committee, because they saw this, I had to give it to them because now they don't meet till the 8th of January.
shoot,
Did kind of weigh in with a couple questions like who's going to maintain them? I mean, after a
Yes.
year or so, the battery, you have to replace
Right.
batteries and service them. And they're worried about, you can't be too remote. You don't want to be in front of someone's house, but if you're too remote, they get vandalized. So there's going to be there'd have to be a, pretty good,
survey.
pretty good discussion on, the cost of keeping these on. Are we
Not an
switching it to
official
the
survey,
highway
but yeah.
department afterwards? Are they going to maintain them if they stop working? Do we call maintenance? Do we get a battery? So, just some thought into the longer term part
Yes.
of the process. That's
Yeah.
all they're concerned
Before
with.
we jump on.
And the portable ones also, I spoke to Tommy, to the highway department. The portable ones are a little bit of an issue because the placement can get in the way of snow plows if they're, and if it freezes and they get stuck, then the police cruisers can't pull them out as easily, and then we have to get the town. And then there's an issue of labor. So, the going and charging the batteries, they're marine batteries. The current ones, somebody's got to go get them and charge them and take them to the house and bring them back in. So there's an issue
So
of that.
who's doing that now?
I do it. So
Okay,
like on the way in, the one on the way in just went out. So I have a marine battery in the boiler room charging.
okay,
And then I'll switch it over to the other marine battery. I replaced the 2 on that one.
okay.
But it's a constant thing. It's not like it lasts for 2 weeks. It's like constantly move around these marine batteries. And I will say,
Yep.
for the point of, yes, they do blink and it could bother people. And that's why you should talk to people before you put them up in front of their
Yeah.
house. But I do move around the trailers quite frequently in front of the McGowans right now.
Yeah.
And no one's ever complained about it because I think they weigh
That
out.
one, I'll just tell you from personal experience, that one is working because I'm always
Oh, that's a
behind
bright one,
somebody. Right when you hit the bank,
Yeah.
you see it and people go,
Yeah.
the brake lights go
Yeah,
on.
we
so
love
that
it.
one is working.
Great location.
For sure, you
And
can
gotta
tell.
understand from our standpoint too, it makes our job easier to issue a citation. Not that we should feel bad about it, but there's no excuse when you go by the 35 and then I'm a quarter mile up the road and I get you going 45. At that point,
Yeah.
what excuse do you have? You went by the big sign telling you you're going 45 and a 35. You didn't bother slowing down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just great for
And
enforcement.
it's
Yeah.
a good reminder for people who are unintentionally, right, they're coming off the
Yeah.
highway.
I think that's what I told you is that
Yeah.
I know that's not a popular opinion, but I'm just being honest that most people that speed, when you talk to them, when you look at their driver history, when you take all that into account,
Yeah.
they're not intentionally doing it. It could be you or I just spacing out for a moment, and that's the majority of people that speed.
Yeah. The other question I have, and I don't know if the finance committee asked this, is we're halfway through fiscal 24. So how do you know that you actually have $27,000 plus to allocate from a current year budget?
Yeah, I've just projected it based on where we're at when Aaron from payroll sends out the expenditure, and I was anticipating, so I can make a projection. It's a rough estimate,
Okay.
but we didn't have this. We lost Alex Paraskoff, so that freed us up money. We
Yeah.
never filled the school resource officer position. We had got extra money this
Yeah.
year because we didn't fill that. So based on those things and a couple other things, but we spent extra money on the 350th parade and some other events. But
Yeah.
regardless, but that projection, we'll be able to give back money to go towards a project like this. Again, normally, I don't know how it normally works, but it
So
seems
the
like the
grant-
police department would give back the money to the town.
Well, when the books close on June 30th, goes into it gets certified as free cash.
Yeah.
Or
So in this
or
way,
transferred out.
yeah, it's
Sometimes we
almost
take
like
it to
I
cover
have a
another
s-
shortfall at the
Yeah.
end of the
Okay,
Would you set it
I'm
to-
just
yeah,
checking because
fair
we
enough.
normally don't do
mid-year. Yeah.
mid-year things like this,
Yeah.
especially for salaries.
Yeah.
That kind of got my attention. And the other thing is your vote. I think it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong. You're voting to expend money in the current fiscal year, and the likelihood of these being, all of them being in place by the end of the fiscal year that would be dependent on Tom's department, correct?
That's
The
not a
highway
problem.
department.
It's an article. The money would carry over July 1st.
Okay,
Yeah,
If
it
you
just
voted
says
into an
taking it, it
article.
says what year it's taking it from, not that it has to.
The money would be
spend
moved out as an article into a special account.
okay,
And then so it would exist. It would survive June 30th,
okay, just checking.
if that's what your concern is.
And, you know, I mean, we might edit and to say for the purchase of, and remove the word 8, and, you know, so that the chief could,
I would say up,
You can edit it anyway.
like use your, because you guys have not figured it out exactly where you're going to
No.
put and how many you're going to do.
No, we were a third of the way through when we made the projections for it, and then also,
So I would make this, I mean, I want to encourage everything that's going on. I just don't want to lock us into moving money into a special account when it might be 5 and it might take us a while to do it. So otherwise, I don't have a problem with it. I would just say
I'll take the number out.
do like up to
Number 8,
something
yeah,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
Purchase of stationary solar units are taken action. Now, the other thing to remember is that even if you move this out, you can close this article.
Can
If
it
you
move
find
back
that-
if you need it?
Well, at June 30th, you can choose it by July 1st. If you're done with this, if it goes fine and you've got money, you can turn it back even then. Otherwise, you can wait until the following year and you'll turn it back then. You don't put the money back, it closes out.
Okay.
I close out special articles every year. That
Right,
are-
I
have
know, you've
achieved
been
and
good about
completed-
that.
Well, they've
Yeah.
achieved and completed their purpose, so you don't
Okay.
have 30 of them sitting on the book, actually holding off on using
Okay.
cash.
I just-
So you have options.
I just
Okay, we all
wanted,
set?
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't holding Tom Walker and you to like getting them all done by a certain date. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
great. Okay, so I think that's
Good.
it.
thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay,
Thanks for
appreciate it.
coming.
Yeah, you can.
Have a good night.
See ya.
Okay, 2 hours into it, got a lot of things to get to, so let's keep going, please. All right, fire department policies and procedures.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at some point you guys have to decide how to address the lawyer's comments. I didn't get
Speaking of
anything from
approaches.
Skip after the last meeting, although I think he was, and I reminded him, and then I didn't get anything after I told him this was going on the agenda, and so I don't know how you want to handle this.
We gave a deadline. We gave a time frame, and we were pretty clear on that in the last meeting. So if they're not going to provide the feedback, we don't really have this kind of back and forth going on with other departments.
We're not playing that game. I'm not playing that game.
It seems like it's getting unnecessarily drawn out, and it seems like it's becoming an over-convoluted process.
It's becoming like a 6-month
It
process
is, and
is
it's
what
ridiculous.
it is.
So I'm sorry.
And
I'm kind of
not-
losing my patience with
I'm
the
not
process.
seeing anything,
Is there a difference in what we would do here for volunteer versus full-time
Well,
fire
we-
department? Is there?
We
'cause
call
I-
them volunteer, but they're paid. I mean, they're an
It's
on-call /volunteer, but we actually pay them to respond. So they are town employees.
It'd be the same thing as a part-time police officer or something.
Oh, okay. And is there a problem going forward, like collective bargaining issue, a union issue?
They're not union.
They're not union. They have a lawyer that's separate, and that's
There's-
for.
I think there's
that's
a
for a
lawyer that.
professional association that they're talking to.
I think they belong to
Yeah.
something that has and pay dues maybe or can access a lawyer who has some specialty. And
Fire.
I don't know who this lawyer is, so I'm not sure, but I don't want to speak for them. So, but just from what he said.
Did we receive any correspondence or response from him on anything? Like, I haven't heard from the lawyer yet. I need some more time. Has there just been no response? Nothing. Okay.
And then
Well-
one further question: recommended strikeouts from KP Law are in blue, and then proposed deletions are struck through. Are those both from KP Law?
Yes. and I tried to make note where it says TZ strike. That's our lawyer,
That's our lawyer.
Zessin,
Okay,
Timothy
okay.
Zessin.
The guy who does personnel.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. And if I wrote anything, it says AL, and I only did a couple places, one
Yeah, I
where it
couldn't
was
find
a
yours.
policy. Well, there was a policy that you guys had already passed on officers who are 65 and older on auxiliary. You'd already passed it, and it differed from what they had in here, so I just made them equal to what the select board had passed 4 years ago. So that shows up as an edit by me, but it's actually already select board policy.
Well, I've read this 3 times, and I have no interest reading it again right now. So
I didn't see anything controversial in here.
there's
Neither
nothing
did I.
controversial in there. It's typical policy.
Well, actually, it retains most of what they had. It gets renamed as policies and procedures. It's clear that they belong as employees of the town, which the chief indicated at the last meeting that they all understood. And so and then there's additional description here for the auxiliary firefighter, which I think is appropriate.
I think that the biggest changes, if you want to put them in context, is that it makes it more of a department like fire and police.
Right.
The chief is the chief. There's no voting to change the direction of a
That's
chief's
the big
decision.
thing for them, yeah. That's the big
because
thing.
it's a department, and when you have a chief and an assistant chief, and you have a hierarchy, it's a paramilitary. I mean, they're not a military, but that's the way police and fire are structured.
Okay.
And so this was structured more like an organization in the past.
Is this like a rule of thumb thing that exists all over the Commonwealth?
Well, there's a history. If you look back, it is
Yeah.
a history. There's a history to fire departments back from the 40s, when I think these were adopted, that fire departments weren't completely town departments. I think this has just carried, and it's never just been updated. Partly because you've had a chief who's operated the department very well for so many years that it's never been thought of. But now in this transitional
Well, and
period,
his father ran it too.
right, so there's a
a lot
transitional
of
period where it just
history.
seems like there's
Yep.
a change here to look at. There's been state laws in the meantime, obviously, with the age of retirement. Those things have just evolved over time. The law has changed by the state. And so how we do hiring, how you do injured on duty, how you do command and control and chief's duties, those have all
So-
changed.
So, if anything, though, in comparison to what we just talked about with police, there's no actual firefighting language specific in here. This is all about organization.
Yeah.
So,
But I do have one question. The officers section, are we leaving them without a secretary and a treasurer that they need? I mean, are those gonna be town employees? You see what I'm saying?
I want to know what the purpose of those positions were.
Right.
What do
and
they
I
do? What do
think
they
that
need
the
them for?
reason they've done that this is done the way it is that you can't have a treasurer. There's no treasurer in
We
any
have a
town
treasurer.
department.
We have a town
We
treasurer.
have one treasurer.
Okay.
So that everything should be turned over to the treasurer. I'm not sure the purpose of whether they're collecting. I'm not sure the purpose of their treasurer, other than when we look through these, the duties of the treasurer to give the receipt, to keep the regular account of all the monies received. No, what monies? That comes to the treasurer.
Yeah.
And in many respects, I think they're doing this. So I think, they don't think there's any stash
No,
of accounts for the
Right,
fire
but the
department.
secretary is a valid, when I toured the firehouse when we were talking about buildings and stuff like that, the chief talked about a real need that he had was for a lockable office, because he has his firefighters' documents, he has case histories, he has stuff like that. That's something that a secretary might be doing. I just don't want to leave them without the help, the tools, and that includes
But-
personnel to do the work
Yeah.
that they need to do.
but that's a good point. But policies and procedures don't handle those kinds of issues. Job descriptions and policies and procedures with the town do.
Correct.
So it's just a question of if there's a need, where is it fulfilled? And what they're used to and what they have the history of doing is it's all self-contained. And the things that are being struck are the things that for any other department would be a job description. Like you'd have a clerk for the department, right? Or an administrative assistant. They wouldn't, so Vivian, who is the admin for police, isn't part of their policies and procedures. Her position might be.
Right.
If she vacates it, we hire it based on the
We
position.
could
Right.
definitely accept
Yeah.
a create a job description, whether it's paid or not, that would encompass the duties that they'd like to see that position.
Yeah.
Could be non-paid.
As a matter of fact, we
but
probably
we don't-
should.
But that, so we took that out of section 1, Article 3, page 7. We took out secretary. I understand why we took
Yeah.
out treasurer, but assistant secretary, we took those out.
Those would all be job descriptions.
Right, but is that part
Not necessarily in the policy.
Not in
that
policy
there would
procedures.
exist? That there would exist one doesn't need to be part of the policy. I'm not trying to be troublesome. I just want
No,
to.
no.
No, because they are going to
In your-
defend some of these, which is why we need to have this collaborative conversation, so we're not having it 10 times between us and then
Yeah.
inviting them. Like, we need to just
For
get
another
this over
6
with.
months, yeah.
Right.
And if they had some other method that this lawyer suggested to handle this in the policies, we just haven't seen it.
So what I think is going to happen, so this is a living document. You get rid of the old stuff. They might have to put in new stuff because when you look through the police stuff, it gives specific duties and procedures to each position, right? And I'm not seeing a lot of that.
Well, we
I've
took
seen-
it out. It's under duties of the chief. It's all crossed out.
Right,
Because we have a job description.
right. You would put those for a secretary or a clerk, whatever it's called, those would go into a job description.
We have a chief's job description.
Yeah,
Because if you double up too much stuff, it's similar to the discussion we had with the SRO. We had a memorandum of understanding,
yeah.
and then we had
Yep.
a job description, and there were some things that were overlapping, but there was also something in one document that wasn't in another. And I know, being in that position, I was like, I know I've read this somewhere, and I'd have to read through one. I'm like, oh, must be in the other one.
right. And
Like,
why would you have an employee read 2 documents for the same
We're
thing?
one town. They are a town department. We are one
Exactly.
town under one policy and procedure directive manual. And there's no reason to have separate ones because then you're just creating contradictions.
So they still have in here, though, they still have committees and duties.
Right.
And impeachment of officers. So if they're town employees, they can't be impeached. Can they be
I don't think,
on
Well-
page 14, for example? Why was that not struck out?
I think there was some discussion about this being, this being a separate, it's like an organizational piece. This Article 6 on, not being, I think,
6 or
part
8, oh.
6, 7, because
And
this
8.
idea of meetings, but see, there's a meetings, see, what they have is department meetings that are outside of the operation. So I think that there's a different thing going on with the fire department. They do have training meetings on Wednesday nights, and I think in volunteer on-call departments, they do have that. And so I think what he's saying is they can put in their policies, as that's a policy, not a procedure.
Okay.
How they want to handle those meetings and committee duties for that particular part of this volunteer or slash on-call, because they do have weekly meetings and they do have policies.
I totally get that. What I don't get is the need for Article 8 then.
yeah.
Why wouldn't they just
yeah.
be fired or brought up for discipline or something, as you would through any department?
Yeah,
I don't know
you're-
any department that would let its
You're not
department
gonna
members
impeach.
determine disciplinary action towards another employee.
And I
Like,
can go back and look. There was some problem too with the document. If you recall, the last time I gave it to you, it may very well be that this was edited and we missed it because remember we couldn't read it. It was overlapping.
Yeah.
So I had to go through and actually I retyped this entire thing and put the edits.
Well, thank
in.
you for doing
So
that.
it's very possible that I can check on that because it's very possible that that's an edit that I just missed because I was doing
Yeah,
it
that's ridiculous.
manually.
On page I'm
That's-
sorry.
Page 14.
14.
It's ridiculous.
On page 13, though, we've got still standing committee and things that were stricken out in other places. So that might be the page 13 under committees and duties, listing of the committees. That might be a similar kind of continuity thing. I don't know. It's a lot, and so. And then my final question would just be about recruit training. I'll say again, I think that it's one of the things I've been really impressed with, and the chief, when he came, I was really impressed with. The way that they bring folks along and they pass on the culture and the training. And I don't understand why we're gonna cut out the recruit training. I think that
There's on page 10,
yeah,
it says recruit training.
Right, but
about I guess the voting is gone.
it's all the breakdown on how
On
they
the
did
medical,
it, which is
right.
right. You can't really do that. But obviously they can do sessions, and what goes into that training they can take care of. But they have members having privileges of presenting to standing committees, names of candidates for election.
Yeah.
Don't really have employees elected.
So clarify for me then, what's the difference? They're town employees. What's the difference between a volunteer and what's the other
On-call?
word?
On-call?
Professional.
Full-time?
The full-time, I'm so sorry. Yes, full-time, and
It is
what's
confusing.
the difference between those if everybody's an employee? Because people talk about there's a big difference.
Right.
Because they cover 24/7 of the town of Northfield in the event of an emergency, but there is not a full-time fire personnel staffed in that building. So that's,
Whether there's somebody sitting there or not.
for example, Orange. I always use Orange because I really love that town. They have a full-time fire department. They're 24 hours, 7 days a week. There is always an individual in that building. So they are a full-time fire personnel.
So that the definition is whether there's a person always in the building.
That's part of it.
Well,
I
I
can't speak
think
to all of it.
I think that where we get tripped up with on-call versus volunteer,
Yeah.
and I can't say that I've looked into it specifically, but there's a history here. The truth is, it's on-call. It's an on-call department.
Actually, that's what he refers to it as.
You
Correct.
get paid per call. You're not a salary
That's
employee.
right. And there are some people who say, I don't want to be paid, I'm going to volunteer my time. But it is an on-call
The
department. I think the history has called it volunteer.
Volunteer.
But they are paid now. And it may be a period in time 60 years ago when no one got paid and they all volunteered.
But if
So
they run out of money, if they run out of money, they're obligated to still go to the fire calls. You just don't get paid. You're volunteers.
So I think the tricky thing is to keep calling them volunteers because they're not really volunteers. The same with EMS. We call them volunteers because I guess they've put themselves on the list to volunteer to be called.
I see.
We went through this with EMS because it is confusing. There are people who are on call, and then there are people who are not on the shift, but they respond to the call.
Right.
It's the same thing. So they're volunteering to come off duty onto the call, even though they were not signed up for the shift. And that's basically how fire operates. When we use volunteer, though, it does get meshed
think it gets
into,
Yeah.
because there was a whole discussion with them about whether or not they get paid for their time, because they quote unquote volunteer it. But if we continue, we have to make a clear distinction.
Right,
that
and we have to be clear that they're employees because they put on a uniform that says Town of Northfield and they drive a truck that says Town of Northfield.
And I
Well,
guess the other difference in
that's the
on-call
big-
versus volunteer is that if you are an on-call employee, so say if a police officer would go on call after their shift ends at night, and they're going to answer the on-call if someone dials 911 and there's an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
They, by law, have to be compensated for that on-call time as well, even if they don't get
Yeah.
called out, because they're not free
to
to
4
go to
hours,
the
I
bar.
think.
They can't
Yeah.
go drive up the road to go to
Right.
the beach at the
So
time.
you do that?
We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
what
something that was
EMS
always-
does.
You're on call.
We do
Okay,
that.
I'm just
So-
trying to understand.
Yeah.
the
do that
If
with
you're on
EMS as
call,
well.
you're the person who has to go to the call, versus a volunteer where it's like, well, I'm at a barbecue.
You
I'm
can
not.
respond.
I'm not in a
I'm not
condition to
coming.
respond to a
It's
call.
not my shift.
It's not my shift. So it's like if you're good enough to go to a call and you're able, you can volunteer to go to it. If you're the on-call person, you are the one who has to go. So like with the ambulance person, that was a
Yeah.
perfect example.
Yeah.
They're in the ambulance building. They're ready to go. If someone else hears the call, they can choose to not go or go
He also
as a
pays some
volunteer.
halftime to people to
Yeah.
actually block out their schedule and say, I won't go to the barbecue. If I do, I can't
be on
drink.
call.
And
Yeah.
we pay them a small
The
portion.
on-call
just
stipend. The
Yeah.
on-call stipend is a great thing
just
to have.
like
Yeah.
they do with police officers to say, we pay you this amount to take so many shifts a year where you don't have to be here in uniform, but you have to respond.
That's right.
So they're compensated. But because we don't do that with firefighters, because it would be all the time, groups of people. They're volunteering to be on call.
Does that
So
help?
it's kind of
So we do not pay an on-call stipend.
not to firefighters, because there's absolutely.
But if they respond to a call, we pay them
we
for
pay
the
them for
call.
responding.
Yes.
Okay,
And we
got it.
pay the officers. The officers have some stipends for their additional duties that happen to run a
It
department.
just helps when you have like an attractive on-call stipend, because if you're only going to be paid a few bucks, it's like, well, it's not really worth it. So you have something that it
Right,
makes
you
you
get-
worth sacrificing your evening.
Let's
over.
say you just sign up for that shift and you never have to go, you still get paid
Right,
up to,
with an
Is it-
on-call stipend.
correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we don't currently do that. We pay when they respond. We pay them money for when they respond. And
Yeah.
if they're volunteer, we don't pay an on-call stipend, but they can
I
respond
think
as long as they're
they
in good
also
condition
pay
to do
them
so.
to attend
Yeah.
their meeting, and I
Yeah.
think they also pay them for training.
I
Yes.
don't
So
think
it's
they
not
do.
just
I
respon-
don't
No,
think
he
they
said-
do.
Not all, not
No,
all.
and which is something
That's
that should also be
confusing.
discussed, because if you're going to require somebody to take, if they have to go to a required training, then that's part of the job.
Yeah,
You
so
can't have them
We're working
volunteer
through
to
that.
go to
But I think there is some other payments, times when they do.
No, because if you go through the payroll warrant from this last one, they're all listed
Yeah.
as getting paid.
They didn't all
But
respond.
they don't get paid for all the trainings. The chief said that.
No, it's
he
very
said
possible.
that, and I was.
But they get paid for some.
They also
some other things.
needed to, a long time ago, take a closer look at their training budget and up that going into, and I think FinCom is going to be taking a close look at that too in FY24 as to whether or not there's an adequate training budget for them.
What about, so we've just had that conversation. Is there a place to put that at the beginning of the bylaws to say we are an on-call department, that kind of thing, like to spell out, do these definitions so that it's really, really clear? It seems like standardizing and putting definitions makes
I think
things
it's
clear.
a mission statement,
A mission statement?
and I don't know. Have they posted one? I think they've been asked to do that as part of this budget process. If they had one already or not, I have to go back and
In
look.
that little flyer that they hand out.
Because that's really what you're saying. That's probably the mission statement that says,
Well, just defines that they're on call, yeah.
Right,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I think there's still room to go with this.
sure, we can
But-
change it.
I would, like, we're also talking about, there's some other things in here like membership that probably need to be fleshed out in terms of employee stuff, but
So I guess since there's got to be significant conversation
They do
to
have
finish
a-
this, we
they
need
do have
to
a mission
have
statement.
we need to have Skip present so that we can go over some of the strike throughs and have a discussion if it needs to be had. He should get a copy of this to see.
He has it.
After
Okay.
but we're gonna.
We
do
should
he
some-
has a
vote on it,
copy of this.
He does. He's
They've been,
several times.
So, but we should
we
set.
started this back in like August or September.
Yeah, we should set a date of when this is going to be talked about, and they need to have their stuff from their lawyer by that date. Otherwise, it's not going to be taken for consideration. And we're going to vote this through in its final format, and then they can add to it if they want to, with the whole living document thing later on. But we need to.
So he's
exactly.
I think you're right. Set the date. He's the chief and he's also the department head.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll ask about your section, run it to the lawyer.
correct. And we expect department heads to come and tell us what additional things they need for policy and procedure. So if they're not going to come and tell us, or it's going to take over 12 months, then at least have the basic document, and then they can continue to add to it as needed. We've had several discussions, for example, with Chief Hall over the last 2 years on different policies. So this is not the end all or the be all, but there needs to be something in place that gets the employee stuff that wasn't there, that gets that in there and gets it cleaned up and takes out the stuff that's already covered under personnel.
Yeah.
And that's most of what I saw with the blue does exactly that, brings it into the 21st century, takes out the stuff that's already covered under either employee law or the personnel policies and procedures. There's a couple of questions in here that would be good to just zero in on with Skip and get an answer, but not be on January 9th. I mean, come
Well,
on,
I mean,
let's
can we
get
fit
this
it, like
done.
January 9th is already pretty packed.
This is the problem. This is why we don't set deadlines and we don't.
Yeah, we're getting too lenient. We got to set deadlines.
Well, it's just like it's
We did.
ripping
We
off a
actually set one
Band-Aid.
for this. And,
We've been
and
very
there was no
reasonable.
response.
We've been
So
absolutely
we're
very-
moving forward.
So we can
Yeah.
move forward with it as is and have him we can continue to update it. That's another option.
The department has 3 weeks, 3 more weeks here. It shouldn't be that complicated, folks.
So
Well,
on
do we need to
January
do
9th?
like a separate meeting with Skip? These are really basic.
We probably should.
And then, because we're going to get into another, here's what I predict happening based on what's already been happening, is we're going to get to the next meeting and then there's going to be more questions raised and then we're going to be like, oh, let's put it off. You've got a basic document. It needs to be a living document. Either approve it on January 9th and then move forward with any additions or different policies and procedures that he wants to put in here, similar to what Chief Hall is doing, right?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you or one of us or 2 of us can meet with Skip and say, let's get down to brass tacks on, page whatever, so that when we get to the January 9th meeting, we're not like having the same discussion all over again, which is what we have
Yes.
been doing.
Doing right now. So, all right.
Yeah.
so
I'd
you
like to
know,
be part of that meeting.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry. Yes, definitely be part of that meeting. Are we all set?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna send this to the lawyer tomorrow. I'll ask you a question about Article 8. I'm gonna get a final review from him. He's turned it around for me in a day.
Great.
I will send it out to Skip and,
Can you send it out without all the blue? Like,
yeah.
he can also have this, but this is hard to read. And so
Yeah, I
he might-
tried to do the edit through, so I'm gonna see if he can fix
Yeah.
that. It had some really wonky issues,
Oh, I didn't
but
mean
I'll.
that. I meant send
Yep.
him this after it's fixed, but then also cut all the blue, cut everything
Yeah,
And
else.
have it the
just-
way it'll look.
Yes.
Perfect, okay.
Then we can do side by side
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
need be.
So
Yeah.
what are we setting for dates? Because I think we need to get very clear, and it almost needs to be a directive from the town administrator. It's not.
It's a directive from the select board via the town
By the town
administrator.
administrator, exactly. So it's not where, hey, let's have this conference. It's like, this is the way it's going to be. We are setting these dates, and here's our guidelines, and this is where it needs to be. And if it doesn't happen from there, then we need to have administrative discussions beyond that.
Okay. So we're gonna do the final run over it. We're gonna have it finalized.
Yep.
We're gonna meet with Skip before January 9th. We'll have it finalized and make a vote on January 9th. Is that what we had
That's
talked about?
So
Yeah.
Sarah, you wanted to be part of that. One more of you can do it, as you wanted to do a pre-thing to bring it back on the 9th.
Yes.
And we're going to find a date to do that.
So 2 of you would have to, could potentially meet with Skip to do that, so that by the time it comes back with the 9th,
Either way.
Sarah wants to do it, so.
And we can do it public if need be. I'm more than happy to sit in on personnel stuff. But 3 of us is a quorum.
Yeah. Do you want to? Have you been in this more than I have?
No.
No.
I think we're about equal on this topic and SRO.
I would
Thinking
mind,
of
I
prior
wouldn't mind
topics.
sitting in with Sarah on it.
Okay.
So
I'll put that together. I'm gonna get it to the lawyer, make sure you have a final thing here,
Okay.
review the document, get it usable to you guys, multiple formats.
If you think it would be
and then
helpful,
set that
then
out to you with a CC to Skip and say, here's some meeting times. Maybe I'll give you a doodle poll.
Yeah.
The 3 of you pick a poll, set a time, and all that
go.
before, after, but before the 9th. So try to do it like maybe after New Year's.
okay.
Right.
And then that gives you the time to send it back.
Okay.
With his comments.
Okay, so to summarize, this looks pretty good. We need a copy that takes out all the blue stuff
Yep, and I'll check.
so that it looks like a real policy and procedures manual. And then you 3, so the town administrator and 2 select board members, are going to meet with the chief prior to January 9th to hammer out some of the particulars, but we will in fact be voting on a manual, not the manual, but on policies and procedures on January 9th. Is that a fair statement?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll get it out, see what I can set up.
Okay.
Okay, let's be mindful
Thank
of the time
Yep.
here. We still got a lot of stuff to get to, and I don't even know if we'll get to all of it because, yeah. So,
Let's roll.
select board policy on the town lawyer access.
I was fine with that. The only
Yeah.
thing I would change is it's a prize, not a praise, but that's,
Oh, is there a typo?
yeah.
Define that. Do you know where it was?
Yep. It's further down in the,
I'll find it.
I still feel very strongly that the select board, should be able to access the town attorney. Not necessarily that we would, if somebody has a question, then they come and they can bring it back. I'm not saying that everybody goes and asks the same question.
individual select board members or the select board as a
yes.
whole?
Yes, and I think that I think it's inappropriate for the select board to have to ask permission from the town administrator to speak to the town council. So
Or you
I
can
think
ask
that's
the chair.
just, yeah, I just think, and
Are
I
we
think
asking
that-
permission or are we consulting
yeah, well,
with
because
our chief administrator?
that's how I read it. And then we also have, we could do something like set an hourly limit. I don't know that we would all do it, but even, I have something to say, but I don't know if I can say it in open meeting. So there have been instances when people have spoken to town council, and I think that it's necessary, and I think that we're as the select board, we should have the opportunity to do that. And I think if the issue is financial, put it at a limit of the number of hours or something
as
like that.
individuals, we have no power outside the select board. And
Right.
the council represents the town.
Right.
So I can't justify having individual members in a
role-
policy consulting with the town lawyer on behalf of the town when you're not representing the town at that point in time.
we have to vote, we have to make decisions, and if we need to consult the town
Then they
lawyer,
have to
we
come
can.
to the meeting and you can ask that in a public meeting. That's how it would work.
I'm fine with this. So,
That's how it has to work, actually. And the other thing that we have to be careful of is it's a budget issue too, in that
We could limit the number of hours. It's not.
I spoke a lot on it at our last meeting. I was fine then. My opinion isn't changing. I'm fine now on it. So, it's written for a purpose and for an organizational consistency.
this is not just it's for everyone.
It's for everybody. It's not just about the board. It's for everybody. So, it's fine the way it is for me. So, we've spoke about it enough at this point. Do you have anything to say, Heath, before I entertain a motion?
No, I guess I don't understand. I guess I would need a scenario of what the concern would be, why individual select board members would need to do it. Because I can't think of any instances I've had to in the last 4 years, almost 5
Yeah.
years. And I just don't understand why we would need to go that route.
I've only had to access the lawyer maybe 2 times in 6 years. And even then I was like, well, the town administrator we had at the time I didn't get along with, so it was understandable. So, but that's what it was for, I guess. But that's not really the case anymore, so I don't really have to do that.
So
Well, but I don't feel like I can say in open meeting what I want to say because we talked about something in executive session, so.
Yeah, it sucks being an elected official sometimes. You got to be quiet. Best way I could put it.
So that's, when you're talking about scenario, that's.
So I think it'd be interesting. One, we need a policy. So I don't have any problem with the policy. In my experience over the last 3.5 years, 4 years, whatever, have only had to talk to the lawyer once, and that was for the dog hearing. So that just happened. And that was, I was talking with Andrea and she got him on the phone. So that's, I can't see, you cannot be basing policies around outlier scenarios, around individual scenarios at this point. Or in general, that's not a good practice. It has to work for 95% of the cases. And then the outlier cases, you can take up with the chair, and that's built into the policy.
And I guess if there was an issue that was serious enough where I would say I'm trying to just spin my wheels to think of like what I would. The only scenario I could think of is that say we had just a completely inept board going on. You had 4 other select board members, a town administrator that looked like what we've had in the past in this place, and you had one person who was trying to make it all right, and you were trying to seek some legal advice, and it was being blocked by every other person there, and you were almost like the only one that was trying to do something good, and you're trying to talk to the town's lawyer. I think at that point,
I certainly would never put myself in that.
No, I'm using the worst case scenario, hypothetical, whatever, because I'm trying to spin my wheels as to like, okay, why would I want to just go talk to the town's lawyer on my own without having any other involvement? And that's kind of the only reason I would think of. If it were that egregious of an issue, though, there are state agencies that would likely be able to help in a
You go to like the
situation
state ethics commission,
Yeah, exactly.
or you go to the lawyer of the
Attorney of the
day.
state police. I mean,
Attorney of the day. I love calling the attorney of the day when I need it.
He has
could
done
be a
that.
lot
I've
of
never done
avenues
that, but
to-
Alex has done
to
that.
help out with something that would be that egregious. So I think without modifying the policy, I think there's avenues that could still help.
Well,
in
yeah,
that
Andrea,
extreme.
didn't you go to law school? You went to law school, right?
All 4 years.
Don't you have an MPA? You're a public administrator.
I did
right?
not get an MPA.
You
I
didn't?
have a
Okay.
master's, but it's
You have a
actually
master's.
in media.
Okay.
Ooh,
But you went to law school, right?
I did.
Okay, and you graduated from law school?
Roger Williams,
Okay.
University School of Law.
All right, well, you're pretty smart. You've been doing this a long time. Couldn't I go to you for advice if I really needed
I
it?
don't give legal advice on behalf of the town. I'm not the town's attorney. I have been able to steer people to
the
laws.
appropriate.
Sometimes they'll ask a question and I'm like, well, here's the law. So I find I'm a good resource for department boards and committees, but if they're asking for something very specific, or certainly where I don't feel qualified to give on behalf of the town and not the town's representation, then absolutely I will either put them in contact with the lawyer if it's appropriate, or I'll contact on their behalf and then
What
put
a
them in
what a
contact.
great policy. You answered all
But,
my questions. Thank you. All right, yeah, that's all
Or
I
steer
need.
them to the select board chair
Yeah.
if there's a reason why they figure that I can't
Yeah.
make that determination.
Right. Okay, I'm going to entertain a motion on this. So, anybody want to make a motion? I'm not.
Let's just
There's no
reread.
reason to just keep looking over the same thing. It hasn't changed.
Motion to approve the access to town council policy.
Second.
Discussion. Hopefully, no more. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, 3 ayes, 1 nay. Majority rules. It has passed.
Where's Bernie, by the way?
Remember his work schedule wouldn't
Oh,
work when
right.
the holiday switched.
Oh, darn
But
it.
he said ahead
Actually,
of
I
time.
think they're skiing. But that's just me. Because I think the Karen's out this week too.
Ooh. Well, that's good.
Good for them.
Yeah,
they may
good
have
for
planned
them.
that around previous schedules. So.
Yeah.
Okay, possible special town meeting.
What I really need
Okay,
to
so
know
we
from you guys is, are we
covered-
setting a date or are we not setting a date? Because if we you have to sign the warrant on the 9th, because then you have 2 weeks for a special.
All right.
We have to not set it on a school holiday again, please, if it's going to happen.
Well, I think those are February and April.
Okay,
So I don't think we'd hit one in January.
excellent. And the reasons we have to have a special town meeting are Article 1 and Article 4, right?
Well,
'Cause
Article 2, if we want to join the FERCog, otherwise we are going to wait, and it will probably be more expensive, but we can choose to wait till July 1.
No, we need to do Article 2.
Yep,
We do have some issues
We
with
have
that.
businesses who cannot get
yep.
Some,
going without
and the
Article
sewer
2.
department also would like very
4,
much
yeah.
to get some engineering money to help them apply for grants that will be out this summer.
Absolutely.
So they have to do that.
Plus the
They have to
50,000
do
for
that.
them to tag along on the work that's going to be done on Highland, because we are fixing that culvert, and when we do, if they tag along with the work that needs to be done for them, they're not paying for
Ooh,
work that's in the grant.
Nice.
So that allows them to save a lot of money, so they're not doing the water control, they're not doing all that because we have to do that under the grant for the highway work. So
Is
this
Brandon Water, whose pipes are all in terrible trouble, are we gonna fix it and then they're gonna go back in and dig it?
It's not Grandin Water, it's the
Northfield Water.
East Northfield Water Company who are not doing any projects right now. So
Okay.
I don't know that they,
That was a
I
very
don't know that
politic
they,
answer. Thank
well, I
you for
don't know that
reminding
they
me.
have
That's for
any.
another discussion.
I also don't know that they have any issue with those pipes. We don't know. We do know that the sewer has an issue with the pipe going through there.
And where did the emergency door get to?
The emergency door, they haven't had a,
At PVRS, it was on this warrant.
right, and we're, the way it was worked out, and was suggested by them, and people seemed receptive, was that it would be taken from the check that would be sent to the town, but they haven't had
Which is
anybody.
what I suggested. Everybody said, no, we can't do that.
Well, they haven't had anybody, respond to doing the work. They
Okay.
haven't found a contractor.
That's right. It's a strange
So,
shaped
Door work is a really hard thing, and that's a complicated door. Door work is
It's gonna be
extremely
built.
hard.
It has to be built.
do.
So,
So
that's
the
how.
things that are coming out of there are, there was like a freezer, a walk-in,
No,
a
the two things have been
dishwasher.
moved to next year. They have to do the walk-in, which has a fridge and freezer part, because they can't, no, that's not being done. They have to do the stove,
The gas stove,
Oh, the grease something around.
the
it.
the
grease,
grease trap.
the
trap.
grease
Yeah.
trap. So, yeah, some of them has made it so that they can't actually cook meals, and so that's become a problem. So,
And that's not here because
Oh, the
they're going to
dishwasher.
take it out of the.
it's the dishwasher, the grease trap, and the
The walk-in
door,
of the door are this
because
year.
they need to get them done so that they can actually
Those
serve meals
have
again.
all been known issues too, and they need to cycle them
So
through
a
the
couple of
capital
issues are going on the
request.
capital account, and
Yeah.
a couple of issues are going now.
All right.
Right, and the way that we, for the citizens, the way that we define that, because I had to go find this out because I didn't understand, is if it's at the high school, that's owned by the school district, and so they pay for it, and that's their capital expenditure. If it's over here, they can't pay for it unless we agree that we're paying for it because our town owns the elementary school.
Correct.
Other people may have known that. I didn't know that.
There's,
so I'm
still
telling you.
some, there's still some debate about
Congratulations.
there's still some debate about what is a capital item, and so a lot of
Yes.
talk about the new regional agreement was
Just
let's
because you found that
define
out doesn't necessarily clear up the procedures.
see.
I will
They
say
clear up the
that.
mystery sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, and the other thing to keep in count is that the Board of Sewer Commissioners would like to increase that, and they figure if they have that vote now, because that is a special act, it will take several months to get through the legislature, versus putting that off and not seeing anything till fall is a whole nother year of waiting for that board.
Can that election happen under regular election then?
Well, we're hoping. But even if it doesn't, I
Has to be
think
enacted.
the
We have a
lawyers,
special election.
well, you can do a special election or they can be appointed until the next election.
Why wouldn't we just appoint to set up the
Well, you could-
legislation similar to the water district
You could
where
do
you have a
that.
mix of elected and appointed?
That's something you need to discuss. Should this be two elected positions?
Because
Should it
it's never
be-
been like droves of people running
Right.
for select commissioner office, right?
Well, some people don't like to run, and so an appointment is sometimes better. Plus, you also get to maybe check their qualifications a bit more if you are going to appoint
Yeah,
them.
because we have quite a few people in town who have either wastewater or water experience who I know would not be comfortable running for
So the
office,
lawyer
but
said that could be drafted either way. We
what do you
could do them
guys
as
think about
appointed.
that? I'm in favor of 5, but not if you're going to have 2 seats open and then,
I like the idea of appointing the concept of when we talked about the appointed versus
Like a
the elected
mix?
town clerk. It really brought that to light in a way that I hadn't understood it before.
because then you can really dig into the qualifications,
Yeah.
right?
but a mix.
But
I
a
like
mix,
the idea
right.
of
Your quorum,
elected
quorum
and
would still be elected.
yeah.
Ooh, so 3 and 2 appointed?
Right.
Can we do the
Yeah,
the
and
wording?
all voting,
the
no
lawyer said,
difference.
oh, no, they'd be appointed full members.
Yeah.
No, the lawyer said he could write it either way.
Okay.
I just didn't change the language and ask him to do that until it was what you wanted.
Would
do
you
you guys
guys be
think?
up for that too? Okay. I'm trying
Yeah,
to help.
just don't appoint me to it. Otherwise, I'm done with that.
We
All right,
won't
I'll ask him to redraft that, and I'll check it with Karen too, so that she
we
understands.
won't make it a member of the select board who has to go.
Please,
It's not,
It's a lot of work.
you don't want to be.
No kidding, yeah.
Please.
But there are towns, just so you know, who do either double duty as sewer and select board or water and select board. FYI.
And don't forget Board of Health too. You know.
Yes.
So that's
So
Deerfield.
thank your lucky
Does that.
stars.
But they have a full health agent in Deerfield.
We're just doing select board. Yeah.
No, in Buckland, my select board was
Their
the, was
stipends
the
are also
sewer
higher.
commissioner.
Yeah,
And
that
at one
too.
point,
Conscom, if there's not a conscom, the select board has to do that too.
and in
Okay.
Buckland, at one point,
All right.
all 3 serving members were not in the sewer district. They were the sewer commissioners.
Okay, that's similar too.
So.
So we
I'm
need a
sorry.
date.
Let's find a date.
Yeah, so if you sign it on the 9th, we can post it on the 10th. That's the earliest we can get it posted, which means that you're probably looking at
9th.
the 24th, 25th.
Oh, the 24th or the 25th happen to be my days off, so I'd be fine with that. We can't really. I'm just. We're not talking about February, right?
No, well, no, at this point, unless you're gonna, unless you want a new moderator, because he goes away on the 28th till the 16th.
So let's say the 24th.
Yeah, we just gotta be careful with February because.
No, you're in January.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because of the budget calendar and
Yeah.
the school
school
stuff usually
thing,
happens
yeah.
on Thursday nights.
Well,
Budget
you,
and
you
school
wanted to
stuff.
avoid school vacation.
We
too,
want to
so-
avoid all
Right.
that.
I would say the 24th.
Yeah.
I've got a FERCog council meeting on the 25th.
I got a birthday.
All right.
So that gives us 3, 4, 5 weeks. And I would really, I would like to make a concerted effort to get the word out ASAP, because I hear people really upset about 2 weeks' notice. So.
We'll get it out. Yeah.
No, I just want to make sure we hit the minimum by law.
the
We can
minimum-
advertise it sooner. I just want to make sure we hit the minimum by
Right.
law in terms of posting.
Ooh, can we add that the town would have a quorum law at a meeting, a town meeting?
It's a bylaw.
Can we do it?
You'd have to propose a bylaw change to
Okay.
what that number would be. But that's, yeah, that goes into your general bylaws. So if you wanted to say quorum for
You
a town
want to
meeting
do that at the
has to be-
special town meeting?
Would you have to, well, you might want to do that at the annual. Because
I
that seems
mean,
like a big
I was thinking
response.
about it.
Don't keep adding on to the special town meeting
Okay.
at this point. Let's just, because if we can have a special town meeting and get in and out,
Yeah.
and then people are like, yay, we got notice, we got in and out, it all made sense, because these are all great topics, and they're chunky, they're, but they're understandable. You're not going to have to like do your
And something to consider for the
Math,
future.
a lot of
Say one
math.
sentence. As we got certified this year in October, and hopefully we're moving that back to September, one of the things to consider is what many towns do. They do a fall and a spring. So you do an annual in the May, and you do a fall in
Yep.
like October, routinely. You can pass it if there's nothing on it, but because the year ends June 30th, by September or October, there's often things that
And is that a bylaws kind of thing, or just
no,
a
no,
just
it's
the way
just
we do
a
it?
policy. I mean, you could put it in a bylaw, but you could just do it as a, but that way people would know
Okay.
they're coming.
let's do that.
Talk about that.
All right.
And I sometime before, I've said it before, but sometime before it comes up for the town meeting, I'd really like to have the moderator here and talk about
Yes.
voting and talk about
I think that's on proposed agenda, isn't
the
it?
I think it is.
the
too.
Disability Act, making that thing that I had said earlier. I'm sorry, I'm tired, my words are.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's just, so we can get out of here, let's
What about the reappointments?
remote access, just
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Make
I
sure
need-
everything's
I
on
need your
proposed
budget,
agenda.
because it's already due. There shouldn't be any problem. There's not really any change.
Is the paper cost going to be less now that we have a tablet?
Um,
Did that go down?
Well, we do it for every department. The paper's for the
Oh,
copier,
our
so it goes for
salaries.
everyone.
What about our
So
stipend?
So there's no
I wouldn't
reduction?
yet if you see a huge fall off, but because we
Okay.
print all sorts of stuff, I'm not sure we can
And
anticipate
the telephone
that.
is just the town phone,
The telephone is the whole voice over IP system.
which now is a dude. That just changed.
The voice over IP changed since we had the lightning strike.
yeah.
Okay.
We had to get a new phone system. It blew out.
No,
our phone
but
system.
recently it changed to a gentleman.
Oh yes, we had to add extensions.
Let's focus on the budget.
Yeah,
Are
we
we
had to add
done with it? So we're good on special
So
town
really, the only
meeting?
thing I'm proposing.
And as long as you
Yeah.
worked it out schedule-wise with PVRS, then you
We're
can
gonna
post
put that in
something.
right now.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
the first thing
All
I'm
right.
gonna do. I didn't
Okay,
have a
to
date.
Sarah's point, I just don't want to lose that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now budget.
The only proposed changes that show right now would be adding a chunk of money to the postage costs.
And that was to send everything out.
Right, and I have to say that I am actually exploring the EDDM, which is every door direct mailings that go through the post office, which we can do drop mailings. The problem is that they don't do post office boxes and they don't forward. So there are other issues around each one of the different mailings.
Okay.
So I've kind of tried to place a full-priced mailing and a full-priced postcard mailing, at least into the budget. Initially, it could end up being less if we learn how to manipulate the EDD.
Okay, so this is worst case scenario, what you put
That was
in.
my thought. If we
Okay.
did a full mailing, we figured out how many labels, we know that the street list goes out. So we know
Okay.
roughly what we're mailing to.
Gotcha.
So I did some pricing there. And I took down the technology. And the reason I took down the technology is because we had a subscription to
That went down.
to something that we weren't using
Gotcha.
in terms of
Good.
online. And it's
45.
never been implemented in all the years I've been here, and we're
Okay.
paying $2,000 a year for it. So I
Right.
said, let's cut that to help offset the
Absolutely.
cost of the postage. So it's
Okay,
really
so
only a
net,
$750.
net
And what's the advertising?
All the advertising,
hearing stuff.
jobs, hearings.
Oh, I see. Got it.
It's-
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
It's under your budget because it's a general town account. Same with postage.
So you went down on technology and you went up on postage, that's
Correct.
it? Okay.
Those are the only two changes that are in there.
I move
Obviously-
that we approve the Select Board fiscal year 2025 proposed budget.
Second.
Discussion?
No, it includes all our goals, and it's not, no major changes.
And
Well
no more
done.
money for select board people who,
Well, it
Spend
doesn't
too
have
much
any
time.
change in salaries right now because
Yeah.
COLA was only adopted last night by the finance committee.
no
Oh.
change in salaries, I see, yeah.
We were gonna do that by special,
I have started a comparison. So,
That's good,
for
okay.
some multiple towns.
That's what I like to
we were
hear.
doing that as
Are
a
we going to
separate,
talk about that on the 9th, or is that an agenda item?
At another time.
it's
It doesn't have to be right
it's
now.
a
I
warrant
think.
article for another time,
Hmm.
annual.
But
I'm
I
just
will
saying
work
it
on
because-
that.
I just meant on the agenda.
Yeah.
I didn't mean adding
Yeah.
it as an article.
Yeah, oh,
I'm just
sorry,
saying.
both. Put it on the list.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good.
Great.
Governance.
The last two are the pieces to submit for the new report. The governance section I took from your goal-setting meeting.
Yep, you did a
Pretty
good job.
exclusively, because you decided at that meeting that you wanted to go in general, although I added mosquito control, and split it into economic development, public safety, human resources, community outreach, infrastructure. Those seem to be the topics you wanted to hit. We kind of steered, you had the last one steered at that, and then you went in this direction. So then I took your steps underneath, your goals underneath each one of them and just fed them into this document.
Yep.
So unless there's something you're missing or
Now looks
don't
good.
like, those came right from that strategic session that you had, your goal planning session in.
No, you did a
Early-
good job.
early
Thank you
fall.
for
Yeah.
putting it into the
Yeah,
format.
it looks great.
So now it'll be disseminated to the public as part of the town.
Mhm.
We're working on the trends and metrics piece. So you have last year's, the way you did it, and I kind of had to massage that to make it kind of fit the same headings as this year's. And you added board development this year, but we
Do
had
you-
human resources.
So you don't
community
need a
outreach.
motion, you just need a go-ahead on that?
Well, that's up to you guys.
All
I
right,
just
well,
want to make
I
sure.
think- Are we all good on
Yeah,
this?
it looks fine. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't have any issues.
No issues.
can you just put my name like that?
Sure.
Okay, that's it. All right, strategic goals.
Yeah, this is another section, and I wanted you to get a chance to look at it. This I took from,
What piece is it?
it's the very last page before you flip over to agenda topics.
Literally the last page.
Oh,
And this was I tried to look, this is supposed to be a broader look, and I put 4 in, some of their books had 2, but I tried to look at the select board, planning board, I was looking at what they were sending in, senior center, and I tried to kind of massage them into sort of
Narrative?
some town-wide, synthesize them into some
Gotcha,
town-wide
okay,
yeah.
okay.
pieces that everybody
can wrap their arms around.
Right,
Yeah.
just kind of synthesize them into some coherent themes.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So this was, and the idea is to state it to protect the town's blank, or to support the town's blank, or to maintain, and then you put by. And then I took what people had put as priorities: ensuring current and future revenues are sufficient. So that's a goal on finance. So the first one's financial. The second one focuses on emergency services departments. The third one talks about place to live, learn, and do business. So a little of that. And then the last one was, I was trying to get through more community, not only natural assets and resources, but also cultural history and all those things.
Nice.
So I sort of split them into those 4 groups, and then tried to feed people's goals underneath them as they were coming in through the department reports.
Nice.
Very good.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
This isn't set final yet, but I wanted you guys to kind of give it. I can put it in there.
Give it an
If there's
eyeball.
some real changes, because we want to print this by
March 1st.
around March. 'Cause this
Before
book
March.
is going to take a much longer printing process than doing it last minute. So if you see anything, got a few weeks to say something or send me an edit.
No, I mean, I've read enough of these documents now. I think you captured all the themes they show up in like open space, recreation plan, the MVP and other documents. So good for you for wrangling it all onto one page. Appreciate it.
So if you
Okay.
do see something, if you think about it,
Otherwise, we're moving forward with this.
yeah, I'll put it in the
Okay.
hold pattern, and
Yep.
then we've got a month or so.
All right. I'm just looking around, looking at the time.
Yeah,
Moving it. All right.
committees. Oh,
Topics not reasonably anticipated.
Yeah, she told her to call.
Bing.
We told her to call, and she didn't call in time to get on the warrant. So this is the woman who wants to her solar.
The one who came before us before.
You said to get
So
the
do
next
we have
week.
dates?
Should be right in there.
It says dates to be determined. Oh, Monday, Wednesday. So which week?
This is what she sent. So you could set them yourself, or not do it. She didn't respond. There was some back and forth by email, and then
Okay.
Sandra
I'm
left, so
going to
she-
say no. Let's move on.
I agree. Is that okay?
We just need a week, and we'll do
We
it.
need time specified.
And nobody's going to want to do talk about
Have people
solar
on,
right
yeah.
before the holidays.
Absolutely. I would love to put some time limits on them going forward. I mean, one guy was out until I think 8 or 9, and I thought that was too late. But we can talk about that later.
We can do that whenever they apply.
Yeah, I think it says
Yeah.
right here on here, like the 10 to 5, 10 to 3.
They have to stick to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair points. Okay, so
Reappointments?
yeah. So with these reappointments, I'm going to name all these names, and then someone should just say "so moved," and we'll move on from it.
Yes.
Okay. So
Unless we have questions.
correct.
Okay.
I'll take it one at a time.
Okay, go.
Zoning Board of Appeals, Aaron Jaworski and Sean Foster, term expire 12/31/2028.
So moved.
So, second.
There we go. All in favor?
Aye.
Police part-time / mutual aid. This is for our mutual aid agreement that we have with surrounding municipalities. So we've got a lot of people here, as well as our own part-time officers in Northfield. John Cowan, Robert Holst, Christopher Redmond, Benjamin Welcome, William Kimball, Jason Bassett, David Schumacher, Laura Gordon, Scott Minkler, Steve Gould, Angelia Rodriguez, Christian Santiago, Thomas Chabot, Darren Gale, Jordan Zukowski, Derek Warden, Mark Ruddock, Allison Dalp, Nicholas Feld, Adam Pykos, James Palmieri, John Richardson, Curtis Weaver, Brandon Bryant, and Mitchell Waldron, with terms expiring 12/31/2024.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Emergency Medical Services, Mark Fortier, Jill Fortier, Rachel Shearer, Ethan Sicard, Cameron Kennedy, Michael Shedd, Jake Whitney, Ryan Betters, Brandon Brault, Philip Wonka, Jennifer Reed, William Kimball, Emily Mills, Todd Sarnick, Mariah Anthony, Talia Hicks, Martin Gibbons, Sean Garland, Carolyn Wagner, Zarnick,
Zarnick. Yeah.
Dan Momini, Joseph Reed, Yvonne Marino, with terms expiring 12/31/2024.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Historical Commission, Stacy Bond, term expiring 12/31/2026.
So moved with
Yes.
enthusiasm.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
You go, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy.
Now that she has some time,
Yes.
got to fill it up.
She told us the other night. We're like, yippee. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Council on Aging, Elizabeth Whitcomb and Deb Lanou with terms expiring December 31st, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then Energy Commission, Spirit Joseph, term expiring December 31st, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much to all of those individuals
Yes.
wanting to renew their call to public service. Proposed agenda items. We'll put the bridge. I think that's a giveaway at this point. We'll talk about the bridge in a correct session format.
The fire department policies and procedures.
Yeah,
Yes.
I added that to the succession plan.
The, just in general, future bylaw about the quorum of the town meeting.
Okay.
And you mentioned COLA as an agenda item. I'm not talking about next time, I'm just talking about adding it.
You're talking about the finance committee's COLA?
You mentioned COLA and said we were going to talk about it, so I'm just reminding you.
Oh, no, the finance committee voted it. I now have to add it to all the, to your salary.
And then an appearance schedule for boards, committees, commissions, and departments. That's just for a discussion on the agenda.
Okay.
I think that's it. What I wrote down.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, shoot. Yes. I went to the school board meeting, and the PVRS district had a grant to produce a conditions report on their building. And they produced...
Is this for the agendas?
This is for an announcement. And so we have at the town that binder that was given by the school board. And it's in my car, or else I would be holding it up for people to see.
Oh.
But I wanted to make sure that we have a copy for the town so that people can come and look at it.
Oh,
Okay.
it's a binder for...
A conditions report of the buildings.
Great.
Yeah.
Got it.
Fred W. Wells Fund 2024-2025 scholarship applications are available in the main hallway in Town Hall, with the deadline being March 20th, 2024.
Nice.
Scholarship applications, folks. So
Go
get 'em
for
in.
it.
Go for it. Any
Okay.
recognition of service?
Mallory.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mallory, thank you very much once again.
I'm going to start crying.
And I just want to recognize the full 350th committee. They had
Yes!
their last meeting. The year's closing out. So
I just went...
Last big events tomorrow night.
What is it?
Well, no.
With the 31st luminaries.
Well, that's the luminaries, but
Yeah.
their last actual event is
Yeah,
at the elementary
yeah.
school, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
concert, winter concert, something.
Yeah. And we're going to do a formal recognition for them at some point, but...
Yeah, let's make them a nice plaque and give it to them or something.
And
If I
I
several...
got a hat I can give away to one of them.
Give away my
Several
hat.
of us nominated Stacy Bond for Citizen of the Year
Yes.
with the recorder.
She
And
didn't get it.
no. And all of the guy Ben Clark from Clarkdale Farms got it. But they were all read to Stacy at the 350th committee. So they ended on a really, really high note. And I just want to say a big, in addition to what Andrea said, a big thank you to the 350th and to Stacy.
And one last thing, the Senior Center Council on Aging received a fiscal year 24 service incentive grant. It's a highly competitive process, and
Ooh.
it was funded through the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and they will use it to implement fun demonstration projects to improve capacity to support older adults in our community through multiple project areas.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Let's get an update from Colleen at some point on that. That would be fun to talk about.
Absolutely.
Her and Deb Lanou.
Yes.
Cool. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion?
No.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.